You're right.
Wait,
Yeah.
am I muted? I am muted. Cool.
Do I even have OBS on this machine?
Why? How could you not have OBS installed on a
Everyone has
computer?
OBS.
It's like a Swiss Army
Everyone.
knife for your computer.
Yeah. Also, this podcast is like the Swiss Army knife of podcasts.
Yeah, it is.
We got Will.
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah, we got Elena. We got Alex.
Hey, Adam.
We got me. Hold on, real quick. Welcome to the pre-show.
Hi.
The Full Nerd. It will start soon. We're live, at least according to my feed. I see that we're live. I'm excited.
We live. Friend of the show,
Let's save this for the.
Oh, you want to save this for the real show?
For the real show. Yeah.
Oh, I thought this was pre-show material.
No.
I'll just put that back down there.
Pre-show material is that we're here, and that we had a long discussion before we went start. Well, it wasn't long. I wanted it to be longer about twinning. I want to know. We need to start a poll. Would you twin with your significant other?
I got it. I can do that.
Like,
What if you don't have a significant other? Does your best friend count?
No, because
How do you know they're really your friend if they're not twinning with you?
Well, okay. So, here's the thing. You wouldn't twin.
I'm not going to twin
with your
anybody.
significant other, but you wouldn't twin with me.
I'm no one. I'm a unique individual.
So my wife and I both own a lot of black clothes, just in general.
Yeah.
Does that count?
No.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
No, that just means you're a lapsed goth,
Right.
I believe.
Or current. That's fine.
Yeah, or current. It's
whatever.
fine.
Yeah.
We're not judging.
Elena seems to be neutral on the idea. I think it's fun.
I can't believe you're telling Elena how she feels about
I'm always
this.
trying to always be twinning is my catchphrase. If you could pan over just a little bit, just center me a little bit more, please.
I'm realizing I maybe don't know. Oh, there we go. Start a poll.
You don't know what twinning means?
Do you think twinning wearing the same clothes
Datus has a question.
as another person
That might be too long of a question. Just
is
keep-
interesting, is good.
Would you do that? Yes or no?
Would you do that? Would
Yeah,
you?
Would you do it? Is the
twin?
question. Datus asks, wait, where did you put your question? You can answer my question pre-show as it's nonsense. It's what I don't know. What's the
Yes.
question? Please restate your comment in the
That's
form of a question
profoundly
because I missed it. Oh, it's on
weird and
Discord.
Unsettling.
Okay, so I'm going over live in the pre-show to Discord. This is a brand new question from Datus.
Yes.
Multi-part. Here we go. Number one. It's too hot to handle, too cold to hold. Who do you call?
The Ghostbusters.
Elena, who you calling?
Wait, what's the question again?
It's too hot to handle, too cold to hold. Who do you call?
Oh, I'm gonna choose the same answer as Will. Ghostbusters.
Alex, who would you call?
Oh, yeah, Ghostbusters would be a good one to call.
I'm gonna call our facilities manager, Luis.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Also
the
good
global
choice.
operations director.
yeah.
Yeah.
He gets paid to deal with
That's a
stuff
good call.
that might hurt you.
I have an oven mitt. I have like one of those UV gloves that's both good for cold and hot things.
UV glove?
Yeah, you never had an UV glove?
Is that a brand?
It's a yeah. You get it on late night TV or at Walgreens in the section with the late night TV stuff, and it's like an oven mitt, but it's not a mitt. It's a glove, and it has little grippy guys on it. We used to use them in the tested studios for the hot lights because you could grab the hot lights with them and unscrew them.
Are normal oven mitts not like you can't do anything cold with
oven
them?
mitts don't have fingers, so you can't. You lack dexterity.
Okay.
You can just
so it's
like
not
pick
about
up
the protection;
handles.
it's about the fingers.
Well, I mean, both apply.
Well, but I guess I've never tried to pick up anything really cold with oven mitts.
Well, I handle liquid nitrogen occasionally.
Okay.
Get in there.
Well, I
with the
handle liquid
colder
nitrogen
than ice.
occasionally. Elena, how many times do you handle liquid nitrogen? 0. Would you?
I can bring a doer in.
Yeah. Would you
We
want
can make some
an
nitrogen
UV
in here.
glove? Are you interested in an UV glove? What if you twinned? What if you matched with your UV glove?
Well, I have one right-handed UV glove and one left-handed UV glove.
There
so
you
it'd be
go.
Mirrors, not twins.
That's twinning enough. I like
You're
it.
twinning.
All right. Question number 2: Beverly Hills Cop 1 or 2?
Oh, 2 all the way, baby.
Elena,
I have not watched either.
me neither. Alex,
One was I agree, Will, that 2 was pretty good, but one kind of got us there, right?
Well, I mean,
hold
look,
the place in your heart.
we wouldn't have 2 without 1, right? I agree with that. But I think 2, that's when Judge Reinhold gets completely unhinged, right? In a really good way. And like the whole dynamic with the like, I don't know. I feel like it's
Not a lot of
They
Act
really
One.
they really get into the race politics of the Beverly Hills Cop franchise there. It's pretty good.
Do you think it, like if I went into it fresh, never watching
You could
it
watch 2
right
without
now,
ever having seen 1 and be fine.
but it would be a good movie.
Look, all you need to know is that Eddie Murphy. Look, it's probably problematic in a lot of ways in the modern era because it was made like 1988 or something.
I mean, it's the 80s. I mean, I was made in the 80s, so and I'm problematic.
I mean, it's true. So the thing you have to know about Beverly Hills Cop is that Axel Foley, played by Eddie Murphy, comes from the Detroit Police Department, and some bad things happen, and he has to go to L.A., specifically to Beverly Hills, to solve a crime. But he's not supposed to do that. So he just tells his boss he's going on vacation, and then shows up at the Beverly Hills PD. Is like, hey, I'm here on the loan from Detroit, and it's very much like Rich Dad Poor Dad, because like the Detroit police are pretty underfunded, it seems like, whereas the Beverly Hills police are driving around in like Rolls Royce police cars, and it's like, you know.
So this is like Coming to America, but for a cop movie.
Yeah, look, have you seen 48 Hours with Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy?
No.
Okay, never mind then.
Okay.
Good talk.
Question 3. Can you name one thing, just one, the humans have done to Mother Earth that would make her raise the temperature to kill us off like a virus? Just one.
Just one thing.
One thing.
I got nothing.
Elena?
Cars.
Cars. Just cars. Mother Earth is like, nah, cars. Boom, you're done. You're out of here.
Look,
Alex?
Crocs.
Yes. Uggs. For me, it's Uggs. Yeah.
Look. You know, my answer is probably
I
coal.
thought it was a real question.
My answer is
Datus does
Yeah.
not
Will
ask real
understands.
questions.
Will understands where I'm coming from on this.
But like, it's Mother Earth's fault that the coal's there. So we're just taking advantage of the coal. We didn't put the coal there.
Yeah.
Wait, is it Mother Earth's fault or is it the dinosaurs' fault?
No, the coal's mostly ferns. It's not dinosaurs. The dinosaurs is a myth.
really?
Like
yeah.
Fern Gully?
Yeah, like Fern
Oh.
Gully. It's the dinosaurs in Fern Gully.
I think I
The
cried to
ferns
that movie.
The reason we have coal is because there weren't microbes that would break down the ferns for a long time. So like forests and Paleolithic were just like layers and layers and layers of ferns that then just got more and more mushed over geologic time into coal. We'll never have coal
So we're
again.
just burning old forest garbage, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like
that.
if we scraped up all the pine needles from the floor of the earth, the forest, and mashed them up into really tight cubes and then burned them. Yeah,
You heard it here
that's
first. Coal is the pine needles of the floor.
Yeah, of the forest.
Yeah.
Of the Paleolithic
It's like
forest.
floor gum or floor candy, or floor thumbsticks.
Yeah.
Same thing. Cool. This is fun. Pre-show. This is the fun part of the show, I've been told.
Really?
Yeah.
It's good that there's a fun part now.
Yeah, it is good. It is good.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to check it in the poll. We got 43 votes. Let's see where
People
we're
are
at.
pretty strongly on no, that's unsettling.
63%. I don't know if that's... also, unsettling is a very strong word.
I'm going to go and tell you, I stacked it as hard as I could without being accused of stacking it. I'm going to just admit that right out front.
You just accused yourself of stacking it.
I'm-
Boom. You accused yourself.
Look, I just want to say I feel like twinning is the old-fashioned version of people who post too much about how much they love their significant other on social media.
yeah.
You kind of wonder, like, is there trouble in paradise or are they actually that happy with each other?
I like doing it IRL. I wouldn't, I haven't posted it. I like just showing it off IRL.
I
Maybe I'm
like
just cynical.
I like seeing like an elderly couple with matching satin jackets on
Satin?
vacation. That's nice.
I've
you know?
got to look
There
up
is
photos
something
of this.
about once you get to that age where you figure they've been together so long, it's just they are just
look,
like two trees who have like grown into each other like a Greek myth.
or what's the fallacy where you're sunk cost fallacy? It could just be sunk cost fallacy at work there too. Like
Wait,
once you
so-
hit 20, 25 years, it's who knows.
You know,
You're not talking about this.
real talk.
Yeah, it's a
You get so
satin
used to
jacket.
one person for long enough, you're just like, you know what? I know what I'm getting.
Nobody else is going to be able to tolerate my nonsense. I know. I just had my 20th wedding anniversary. Like I'm in that zone. Like I'm
Wow,
lucky that anybody
congratulations.
tolerates my business.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I say that every day you come in. Can you
really are.
Can you add just a smidge to my mic gain, please? I feel like I'm a little muted. Little,
What's your favorite
bring it
Stallone
up.
movie?
Stallone?
Yeah.
Like Mike Stallone?
No,
Mark
Sylvester.
Stallone? Sylvester Stallone?
Sylvester Stallone.
That is a good
They're
question.
talking about Davina, a friend of the show, Davina Duckworth's talking about Cobra in chat, which is a banger of a bad action.
I gotta
movie.
look at
I mean, the answer is probably Rocky or
Sylvester
Rambo, but probably
Stallone.
Rocky.
I really liked that Rambo remake
Oh,
where he's like
Apollo.
Burma's a war zone. No, Rambo.
They made a remake of Rambo?
Well, not a remake, just I think it was kind of a remake, right?
First Blood?
No, this was like Rambo 5 or something.
I've never seen any Rambos. I've seen Rambo 3, but
also,
I didn't see it with any audio.
I really liked Rocky Balboa.
Rocky
when he
Balboa's
was the
pretty
old
good.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the what Rambo am I thinking?
Oh, a lot of love for Demolition Man in the chat. Demolition Man is a great Stallone movie, but it's not a good movie.
I need to see that again.
It's the one with the shells, right?
Judge Dredd, I thought he did horribly in that, which is kind of funny.
Like Judge Dredd is rolls over to being good. It's so bad. I think Get Carter's pretty good.
What?
Yeah, he's the evil guy in Ants. He's the
that's
evil
funny.
warrior guy.
Why can I not see that Rambo? What is that?
I don't think they did make it.
Yeah, because Rambo Last Blood.
That might be it.
No, there was one before 2019. I
There's
can't remember.
2008 Rambo.
Where? Oh, yeah, that's the one.
Did they
I like
de-age
that
him
one.
for that?
No, he was the appropriate age. They got him out of retirement. It's the 4th installment of the Rainbow series. Yep. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
not a huge fan of him. I'm an Arnold guy, so.
Look, I mean, that's the right answer.
Yep.
But
all right. Well, Willis is here.
wait, he's King Shark in Suicide Squad? I didn't know that. That's amazing. King Shark Suicide Squad is great. King Shark. Starfish. It's all about the starfish.
Okay. Cool. Well, then I think we're ready. We have the music back. I'm excited. The music is back.
Let's get
Cue.
It's back, baby. And yeah, now that it's secured for at least a year.
Yeah.
Then now
no more shenaniganry.
Well, no. Now it has become very apparent to me that we need to hire somebody to write this a full nerd intro song, so we own it outright rather than licensing it from a third-party service.
Over the top.
Elena, do you know how to write a song? Could you write a song for us?
Nope.
Why?
I am not musical at all.
Not with that attitude.
Just let AI do it.
No, that's not the right answer.
That's not
either.
me doing it, though. That's cheating.
Look, that's writing the prompts.
You're writing the prompts.
You're a prompt engineer.
Yeah. Elena's face.
Over the Top is my favorite movie about arm wrestling.
I have my pre-show topic, I guess, would be that MIT AI makes you stupid study that came out, and there was almost immediately a rebuttal that came out in the conversation from, I think, a pair of maybe professors or researchers at like a university in Australia, I want to say. And they were saying, oh, but the study is flawed because of, these particular things. And I'm like, I think this is one of those cases where you're not wrong about the tree level issue here, but you're missing the forest.
I read that study. I read the Apple study about how the problems the AI engines break down with more complicated, as you increase complexity of the problems, where they did I can't remember what the name of the problem is, but it's the Towers of Hammurabi or something, where you move the disks and they have to be on the smaller disks have to be on top of bigger disks or something. Anyway,
look at.
Yeah.
For some reason, you're in slow mo on my feed.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh, you're normal.
High speed.
So it's just me.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
weird. Anybody else seeing the stream in slow mo?
I just think.
Let me look.
I think when somebody smart like MIT people come out and be like, "Hey, AI makes you dumb,"
Are they actually smart?
The right answer isn't. No, it doesn't.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna ask Copilot.
Oh, that's
Are people who go to MIT
That's my least favorite segment of the show, just for the record. Hey,
in fairness to the people who wrote the conversation article, they weren't saying quite like, no, it wasn't her. They were criticizing, I think, the nuances of how the study was conducted, which fair, but again, I think it kind of missed the point, which is I feel like the study still highlights that people because I think one thing that stood out to me was that, so they had people write essays, and there was like three groups, right? People who did it like completely with no assistance, the people who had some assistance through like searching through Google or whatever the search engine was, and then people who actually used AI to basically, I think, generate the essay. And one thing that stood out for me was that they said that the people who had used AI to generate it didn't even really remember what was in what was generated.
Well, yeah, because they didn't. Why would you read it? It's just garbage. It's AI generated slop. When I hit one of those web pages on the web, I'm like,
it's not even just that. And I was like, oh, that's scary, because I've seen kind of this phenomenon with me in autocorrect.
Yeah.
And you could argue that, actually, this is a little bit of inside baseball, but you could argue that that a lot of writers don't think spelling is important, and I can say this with a bit of love as an editor. But I find it as a not former, but like these days I pretty much do writing. As someone who has done editing, it is very disconcerting to me where I look at words now and I'm like, is that with an E or an A? I actually don't immediately remember anymore. And it's because I've gotten so used to just starting a word in on my keyboard on my phone, and it just auto completes for me. And I look at it and I check it. I'm like, yes, that's right. But it's scary to me that because as I think Brad put it, if you're not using that muscle, it starts to atrophy.
Well, it's the same thing as the homophones or homonyms. I can't remember which, the one that the words are spelled different but sound the same. So like if you get it's like you don't see the misspelled words that don't have the red squiggly lines, because if you don't actively work to counter that, your brain will just only look at the red squiggly line words to see if they're misspelled when you're editing docs. Like when I was editing at the magazine full time, I had to turn off the red squiggly line so I would actually see every word in order to avoid the problems. I think my theory on the MIT article was that those people who had the AI just generate their papers, hit the button, spent 5 minutes on the prompt, hit the button, generated the paper, and then watched Love Island for 2 hours, which made them much stupider as a result.
Nothing wrong with Love Island.
I love Love Island,
Wow.
but
wow, Will's is coming in hot today, just criticizing all the
Yeah, now we're
things
not going to get that
people
Netflix
like.
sponsorship.
no,
Jeez,
it's Peacock. Peacock can't
Oh,
afford
that's
to say
okay.
no
I
to
don't want that one.
sponsorships.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
can't cut people off. But yeah, no, I just feel like 45 minutes watching Love Island is good for 20 IQ points just straight down the toilet.
Okay, let's start the show. Glad the music is back. Are you ready, Alex?
Yeah.
Here we go.
This is how I start the show.
Boom. Cool. I like it. Just brain rot.
I can't do anything worse than what I just did.
Yeah.
Adam says.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi.
All right, here we go. And in this episode of The Full Nerd, new AMD CPUs. Okay. One more time.
You don't have notes there. What were you
No,
looking
they're
at?
right here. It's on the title of the. Just look at the title of the video.
This is tradition, Will. It's
Yeah,
tradition.
come on. It's called warming up. You got to get,
Lemon
gotta
face,
get
lion
warmed up.
face, lemon face, lion face.
Yeah, Sally sells seashells down by the seashore. In this episode of The Full Nerd, what is it? It's okay. God dang it. Stop it. In this episode of The Full Nerd, AMD has new CPUs, Steam has a new FPS counter, and Xbox has a new console. Flip that last one. Oh, the music's back. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, I missed that jam. And welcome to episode 353, according to my notes, of the Full Nerd Podcast, the premiere, the best podcast about PC on the planet. I am here. I'm your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray, but I am not alone. On the TV, alone in the box, is Elena Yee. Hello, Elena Yee.
I'm stuck.
She
I can't
is in
get
the
out.
box. She can't get out. Yep. All right.
I'm sorry.
And then here at the table with me, I've got one Will Smith. Just one.
Also a mime.
She did a better job at it.
Well,
'cause
she
she's
has a box.
actually
I'm not in a box.
Yeah, so
you have to imagine my box is there. It's like,
Well, I don't have to imagine that we got somebody controlling the verticals and horizontals because we got Alex Estevez
What is up, y'all?
with a really cool jacket, which I want to buy so that we can twin.
Yeah,
Oh,
when your boss
yeah,
asks
I
you
wanna
to
see
twin,
this.
guys, do it.
Yeah. Do it.
you don't have to do what he says. I mean, in this case. Some stuff, yes. Hey, edit that video, that's a yes. Hey, wear that jacket, that's a, I don't know.
Well, hey, before we start,
Yeah.
I just want to say I have been missing Gordon dearly a lot. I mean, I do anyway. We talk about it not here and there, but I've went back to the point where I've went back and I'm starting to re-watch or listen to the old episodes of The Full Nerd just to hear him. And man, it does feel crazy that we've gone 353 episodes. That's wild, and I appreciate everybody here. Elena, I appreciate you. Will,
Thanks,
Alex, Willis. I know was watching. Brad's not feeling good, so he's not on. And everybody here. I just I don't know. I feel appreciative. We've come a long way from literally episode 0 where we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
It's been a long run.
It was a fun time.
It's been 9 years. We just crossed, I think, in May, the 9-year mark.
Oh yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, episode 0
That's crazy.
was literally about the GTX 1080 had been announced. And
Pre-goat.
yeah, and everyone was like, and Gordon was throwing shade at you because you were like, oh, well, I might be able to get a couple 970s on a discount. And, of course, Gordon.
Wait, were you going to SLI them?
I mean, that was still a thing back then.
Oh, my God.
But no, you would saw some 970s like on real cheap, and you're like, ooh, maybe that's actually better than getting one 1080.
I got a couple 970s in my garage. If you want them still laying out, I can part with them for the right price.
There you go. It's a real good deal.
I don't know. Even long time fan, resistant to change. I don't know what we want to say, but friend of the show, Borea Zero, finally gave up retired their 970, and I missed that. I was actually kidding with him the other day. I was like, oh, maybe you'll finally upgrade. And everyone's like, he upgraded like a year ago. Lena, where were you? I was like, whoop.
Dang, Elena. Yeah. So it was fun. Memories. Yeah, memories. Also I like capturing memories, especially with new hardware.
Yeah. Hey, Adam, did you get new glasses?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Elena, you like my glasses?
Oh,
they're nerdy.
Yeah. See, that's the same. Yeah.
Okay. Am I supposed to
They're
comment on the
Ray-Bans.
fashion aspect, or am I supposed to comment on the nerd aspect?
What do you know anything about these glasses? Or is it just the looks?
I know that they're a raging success from Meta. They've sold literally dozens of them.
Oh, these are Ray-Ban glasses.
Yeah, they have camera and they're spyware glasses from Meta, is my understanding.
Yes.
Why are you spying on me, bro?
I am. Watch this. I'm going to take a photo of you.
No
Watch
photos.
It. You can see the light. There you go. You see the light up? There you go.
I saw.
I'm going to share that
Is
in
it
Discord.
off now?
What
is it
off
still
now?
recording?
Well, no, I just took a photo.
Oh.
Did you see it flash?
It flashed
Do you want me to hit record?
Yeah, they are not smart glasses. That's exactly right, Davina.
These are the smartest glasses I've ever owned.
Look.
I did have the Alexa glasses that came out during the pandemic.
Sweet mother.
Those were junk. Those were trash.
terrible. Yeah.
These are at least Ray-Bans, so the glasses part of it is somewhat quality.
Are you listening to another podcast while we're recording this podcast?
Yeah, I should put on some music. I do like that. No, I saw some people using these influencers using these at Computex to get vertical video, and I was like, wow, that would be really nice to be able to like look at something with two hands, or like actually use something with two hands and
get a headband with a GoPro on.
I was just gonna say, like, that's
No,
the
I'm not
Gordon
gonna do
special.
that.
That's the real way.
We need to keep Gordon's spirit alive and just have like a GoPro mounted to a forehead strap, because that is so. So when I first started Maximum PC, I definitely carried some of my, I would never do that kind of, like, it's not fashionable sensibilities with me. And I was trying to build, and Gordon's like, why don't you have like a headlamp? And I was like, because I don't know, I don't want to look like that. He's like,
are great.
Who cares about the looks? You have both hands free and you can actually see what you're doing. It only took like maybe 7 years, but I finally came around to his practical dad view.
There was like the headlamp. When headlamps got cheap, I remember he came into the lab one day and he had one, and I was like, "Oh, this is incredible! What is this thing?" And he's like, "It's a headlamp." And he's like, "They finally got cheap," and I was like, "Oh, how much is that?" It's like $80. I was like, "Get the hell out of here! That's too much expensive." That's too expensive.
$80 back then?
Headlamps used to be really expensive. Like when white LEDs were new, headlamps were crazy expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah, now it's cheap. These are just a privacy violation.
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not paying attention to the conversation because I'm literally listening to last week's episode of the Full Nerd.
You know what I do?
That's nice.
You know what my wife had to do a Zoom the other day with the school board. There was a school board meeting. She wanted to hop on the Zoom for it, but it was a multi-way Zoom. She's always paranoid she's gonna hit the wrong button and like her camera's gonna go out to everybody watching the school board meeting.
Yeah.
So she just puts a Post-it over the camera.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
That's
Problem
fashion.
solved.
Is this Elena? Is this fashion?
Now I feel like my privacy is.
I think honestly, if you made it some kind of like cute print, like some kind of fabric thing, and just like swapped it out frequently, you could potentially start some kind of trend.
Yeah. Now I'm making a statement. I was stupid. It's like the people who bought a Cybertruck and put a no Elon sticker on the back. It's the same thing. I bought one of these and then said, no, you know what? I'm going to cover up the camera. So.
I am wondering though, because so I spend a non-zero amount of my free time watching those kitty cams where they put like a GoPro or
Those
like
are
what's
great.
Insta
You just outed
360.
yourself.
Yeah, you just put them on the collar, and I'm like watching. I'm looking at you with those glasses, and I'm like, is this the influencer version of that, where you're just watching them go out
Oh,
there, Jay?
That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
This is much better. Now it has like I
what
look
does
at
it
it,
say?
I'm like
I don't even know.
you'll find out later.
It's like
fine.
that. What is that game? That you try to guess heads up.
Oh, heads up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good game.
So, I will say, Dan Masoka, I think I'm remembering his last name right. So, one of our former video guys, he's a prankster, and I never had confirmation of this. But like as soon as it happened, I was like, it has to be Dan. There's like nobody else in this office that I would immediately peg as the person who did this.
Okay.
And so I was that person who had a little bit of a Post-it stuck over my laptop video camera for my work camera, just because I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything weird at work, but it does like concern me that I could accidentally turn on the video at some point. And I just do this with all my laptops, even now. And one day I came to work and someone had taken this like tiny square, like less than a centimeter square, and had cut a diamond in it to show the camera again. And I noticed it immediately. Like I have such a clean desk at work, which is hilarious because my home office is a mess. But when I'm at an office, I keep it super whistle clean. And so like I got to my desk and I was like, something's different, something changed. And I looked at it. And what I did is I made a new one and I wrote on it, nope.
Wait,
And it was left unmolested after that.
I could see this being Gordon too. You don't think it was Gordon?
I don't think so, because he never commented on it, and he seemed to
okay.
just be like, yeah, that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could. I would never know, and that would be even smarter of him because he's laid the groundwork for someone else to take the fall.
Interesting.
I just think it's funny that Zuckerberg, who famously has physical switches in his laptop for the camera and the microphone, it's like selling glasses to trying.
Do as I say, not as you do.
Yeah, they're trying to sell
Well,
it to
he doesn't
billions
want
of
to be
people.
spied on. He
Yeah.
wants to spy on other
Yeah,
people.
that's true.
Those are two very different things. Like, let's not confuse it. It's like confusing like masochists with like sadists, right? Like,
That's
very
true.
different direction.
Yeah, the inverse.
Well, yeah. Speaking of that, we have a show to get to. We're going to talk about.
Wait, speaking of masochists and
Yes,
sadists, we have a
yes.
show to get to.
That's what PC lovers like is
Sometimes
just
it
abusing
feels that
themselves.
way.
We have two breaking news stories. It's not even on the list because they're
Yeah.
breaking news this morning, and I didn't make Alex do reshuffle any of the topics. So quickly, the RTX 5050 has been announced both for laptop and desktop. Cool. Moving on. The next one is.
I bet people are gonna love them. I bet this is the one.
This
People,
is
they're
the
gonna
one.
come out and they're gonna be like,
Damn.
finally an 8 gig card that we can get behind.
Yeah, $250. Good luck. We'll see how that goes.
Let's go, gamers.
Yeah, I will be buying one, hopefully testing it. But anyway, I think we can expect what the performance is going to be like. But more importantly, apropos of our or
Yeah, that's right.
based off of our last
or a pro.
of last week's episode when we had Mikey on talking about security stuff, which was a good episode. You should go
was a
watch
really good
that
episode.
if you like a lot of off the rails kind of stuff. And we were talking about Windows 10 end of life or end of support.
We spent so much time on it.
Yeah, and they just announced this morning. Elena, what did they announce? Do you know the news?
They announced that they are going to allow free security updates for a year. However, there's a big asterisk on this. So
It is.
it's free if you sign up for a Windows backup or like you enable Windows backup.
Oh.
However, if you don't have enough room to store all your files and such, you are obviously going to have to sign up for some kind of, what was it, everybody?
OneDrive. Yay. I'll say it all together. 3, 2, 1. OneDrive. What are you doing? Come on, Will. We're all saying it together. Man, I mean, I love. Well, look at that. I would say you got to think about it the other way. You buy OneDrive and then you get free security updates.
So-
that's great.
Yeah, that's more expensive though, honestly, than it is
$30 one.
to pay the $30 for the first year, which I believe is still an option. I'm just double checking the article here. Yes, it's still an option. The other thing that I actually want to highlight, like Mike Ryder, you've seen him before on the show, my colleague Mike Ryder, he wrote this up and already as an article, but I want to pull out this one part of it as its own shout out, which is that all those Microsoft reward points that I somehow have accumulated, I can actually use towards this.
Ooh.
I love that.
I have reward points too.
Yeah, you can use
even know.
1,000 Microsoft reward
That's a
points
lot.
to do this. Apparently, I'm going to dig into this some more just to make sure it works the way it does. But I think it's actually a great way of highlighting it. And honestly, I think as somebody who speaks for the people, who was like a very poor student, like nobody really wants to use Microsoft Bing as a search engine.
No.
However, Mark Hochman, for years, and he's on vacation right now, and I'm so sad because I actually wish he was on the show, even just for the segment, but for years has been telling me, Elena, like, you love deals, you love rewards, all this stuff. Why are you not using Bing? Like, this is how I'm paying for like Game Pass and other things. And I'm like, Mark, do you know the number of times I've searched for something in Bing and I don't get the results, and I go to Google and I get the results? I would used to take screenshots for him, and I was like, this is why I'm not using Bing right now, Mark. However, it is June. There is possibly enough time to earn these points between now and October.
So that's
if
it.
you really
You're
want.
switching to Bing.
Look, Elena, right now,
Bing journey.
right now you can download the Bing app and earn 500 points on your phone. You don't have to use it.
There's
Right here, look, it says right here. Wait, this is the AI.
50 points a day.
there's no better time
You
to Bing
can-
than today.
Yeah, you can earn, I think, up to. You can sometimes even get more points per day because you can do like the bonuses. So I think getting to 1,000 actually should be pretty. I would definitely gonna
Wait,
pitch this.
you only
to Brad.
need
Hi, Brad. I don't
1,000?
know if you're listening.
Oh, I have 12,000 Bing points right here.
Yeah, I have
Isn't that what that is?
3,300. I've done nothing.
Yeah, great. Sweet.
Eh.
I could get
I'm gonna check
half
this
of a
later.
$5 Amazon gift card with those 3,300
no,
points.
yeah, no,
But
my
I'm
Windows
just,
10
I'm
was
just
covered.
letting you know, PSA, there is like the actual sort of free way of doing this. And so I'm going to double check this and then pitch the story if it actually works the way I think it does. But yeah, keep that in mind. Let your friends and family know.
There's some referral
I
stuff.
don't know. Can you share points with other people?
No.
I don't think you can.
But you can refer people to using your code and generate points.
Wow, they've really
No, I'm trying
gamified
to
this.
think
It's a
about my parents.
triangular-
I'm trying to think about my
Yeah.
parents where I'm like, do I just go to their place and just generate points for them?
I mean,
Or
like
do
they've
I
really
just-
gamified this.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Like, look at
Yeah.
this. Search with Bing
Yeah.
3 times and you get extra bonuses.
If
or
you search for a movie, you get double the
a
points.
daily poll, answer daily
If you read
poll.
that article about 12 of the most expensive cat breeds money can buy, that's
Ooh.
probably worth a half a point.
Yeah, there you go.
Sometimes though, the Bing points are kind of cute because it's based on like wallpapers that you have to look at or whatever.
Yeah.
And I have snagged some nice photo backgrounds for
Hey,
my
check
laptop.
out this wallpaper. I'll give you some points.
Hey, man, I got some wallpaper here.
Some of them are really nice.
Can I just say
Hummingbird one?
the thing that annoys me about this is that I pay $130 a year for Microsoft 365 Family, which gives my entire family access to Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, and some other nonsense.
Spending so much.
Can you get it
He needs
cheaper?
because he needs OneDrive. What do you?
Yeah.
Alan says.
I will. Okay. I guess I should tell everybody.
Yeah,
'cause
you
it's
should
the
tell
cheaper.
everybody.
No.
It's
Save
like
this
I'll tell
only
you
for
offline
Will.
so we don't have to keep delaying the show. So here's the trick. You can just like one really nice thing about Microsoft subscriptions is that they let you load up with prepaid cards up to like anywhere from 3 to 5 years depending on the service.
Yeah.
So for Office 365, the last I checked, it's a 5-year max. And so you basically just look for deals on 1-year codes for family, or, and I think they still allow this, you can even buy personal subscription cards, and
Yeah.
it just gets prorated to 9 months instead of 12 for the year. And so I have scored Office 365 for way under list price because I will wait for sales, and sometimes they're half off. I first did this on a $15 for personal for the first year, and I bought 5 cards.
Ooh.
And I just loaded my account. So I had like 4 years of Office 365 Family for like $75. It was fantastic. I've never gotten it that cheap again. The closest I've ever gotten was Ant Online did a sale for $20 on personal. And you can hold these cards. They do not expire.
That's
so
a
you
deal.
can just stock up, and then as your time starts ticking down, you just put a new card to put it back up to the maximum.
Look at
You
that
just keep doing it
value.
like
Look
that.
at the value we're given here.
Yeah. Yeah, only for you, full nerd listeners. Last breaking news thing. People are asking about Mikey's Linux build, which we built
You mean Kali?
Yeah. So it was broken. We posted, but we couldn't get Kali to install on it. We went through a lot of troubleshooting stuff. We just called it. Afterward, we did definitely like rub our brain cells together to try to troubleshoot some other stuff. We went through a bunch of steps, including take out the GPU. We actually tried to. He burned a installer of Linux Mint. And that still had issues with the network thing. So I think it was the motherboard. So yeah, whatever. We tore it down. We're gonna have to rebuild and figure out again.
Build them a new one.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, Linux. Year of Linux, starting off to a great start. What else is the year of? It's AMD. AMD's year is this year. So I've heard.
You think so?
Well, they've got new CPUs out. They keep
more.
They keep the gravy train rolling.
Usually this is an Intel thing. Intel is usually like, hey, we have a bunch of CPUs.
Yeah.
This year they're like, hey, we just released these 4 and we're not talking about it anymore.
Yeah. Well, and these are good deals. Well, I guess I don't know. I gotta see if Elena
Deals
thinks
editor.
they're good deals. I did see this, man. Video cards. If you're watching these articles, oh crap, always get me with which say like, oh no, now I'm just digging around in my crotch.
Wow,
there we go.
Whoa, wow! Why are we
There it is.
narrating this?
Yeah. Sorry.
Welcome to the audio
The article.
podcast. If you were listening along, Adam was just digging around in his crotch.
Yeah, to look for something that fell down there.
Just rehash that.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure they didn't miss out.
Anyway, there was an article that said 9600 X3D AMD confirms 9600 X3D, which they haven't.
So this
but
is Zen 5.
This is so Ryzen 9000, Zen 5,
core.
goodness, 6 core,
12 thread.
X3D part. So this has not been officially announced. This showed
What?
up
We're
in
doing rumors.
Well, it's actually a credible leak. It posted on a site.
They put on the internet.
No, hold
That's
on.
kinda
On a
incredible.
site
Hold on,
somewhere.
I got a
Hold on.
site here with this
I'll
link.
hit the link. Let me look exactly.
Is it Frank Azor's AMD fan page?
There you go.
That's a credible site.
No. We got an article. There's a link in the
Frank
description.
Azor's back pocket.
There's a link over the description to PCWorld. Let's see, where was it? It comes from AMD itself. The unannounced chip showed in a compatibility list for the latest OpenGL driver for the AI Pro R9700. So this was in a driver. They listed support. Is it still up there? Oh nope. It looks like somebody took it. Oh no. Yep.
Nope.
Yeah, it looks like they
pulled
took it down. So it was
Confirmed.
in there. I mean, They didn't confirm it. Actually, I should have reached out to A&D for comment, but I know the answer I probably would have gotten. But yeah, either way, it looks very likely that a 6-core part is coming out, but it's not surprising. I don't know.
I wonder. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I only looked at this kind of briefly, and I wasn't sure from what I was reading. It says that it supports DDR5 5600, and I didn't know if if that's really the cap for it, or if that's just where it's coming out for now. Because that's a little disappointing to me.
I mean,
I would assume it's probably.
Well, yeah, I'm not quite sure. Because usually, I guess we'd have to look at the 9800 X3D, but I mean, that does support.
Oh, it supports 6000.
6000, yeah. So,
I
don't know. I mean, so it's confirmed but not confirmed. So, whatever details are out there.
Standard. No, what's the mega transfer, the baseline for DDR5? I can't recall off the top of my head.
Well, I think JEDEC is what
53 or something.
No, I thought it was 48.
Oh,
okay.
I think
So that's still, that's why I mean, that's why I was kind of confused. I was like, that's kind of low if that, because, Anyway, I guess we'll see because it's not officially announced yet.
Yeah.
I wonder,
I can't imagine it being that different.
My kind of question is if you're on Zen 4 or even older 8-core, octa-core, what's the sweet spot? Is a 6-core 9600 going to be faster than a 7800 X3D or 5800 X3D? I'm curious.
I mean, I think it would depend on the game, right?
That's true.
I mean, just like
Yeah.
the Vcache. The Vcache isn't a one-stop. Every game just
Not a
gets a benefit
panacea.
of it. Yeah. I don't know. I think the other thing really is that and I've seen chatter about this. I want to get everyone's take here. Would you buy a 6-core CPU in today's age?
I wouldn't, but I live on the high end.
Elena, what do you think?
Actually, it's interesting you asked me that because I do think that for some people, they just aren't going to be able to go higher. And I don't think enough games are really pushing that many cores. So I think it's okay. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's great for someone who has a very multi-layered kind of use case, right? Where they're like doing a lot of different things with that. Like if that's the case, like if you're planning to do stuff that's going to hit those cores, even if not often, then maybe you do want to save up a little bit more. But I think because I was talking to somebody like their teenager is looking to build their first gaming PC and their budget is they're hoping to stay around 700. And I was like, oh, okay, that's actually kind of tight right now, just with the effects on, the US fiscal policy, the effects on, how parts are being priced right now and all of that. And I was like surprised how hard it is actually to hit 700 with it without it like you cutting something, because I was like, man, like power supply prices are really high right now, relatively speaking. Like some of the 750 watt power supplies were cheaper than the 650 watt power supplies. So I couldn't even like step down because I was like, oh, if you're only doing like a 1080p build, then like we can just cut some layers here if you don't care about upgradability down the road. Like if you think that you might not turn into a huge PC gamer and aren't looking to like push your limits on your build later, then maybe we can do this. And I was just like, dang, I'm starting to get into like power supplies that I don't necessarily want to recommend for somebody.
I put a six.
So I think. Oh, sorry. I was going to just say, so to finish my meandering here is that I think that for some people, unfortunately, they will have to do a 6-core and you kind of just have to face that as a reality, unfortunately. I don't think it's that detrimental. I think you're still going to be able to play games.
So, yeah. Like my daughter's PC is a 5600X, which is a 6-core. And like it is entirely sufficient for like her normal day-to-day computing. Like she plays Fortnite, Minecraft, and Roblox.
1080p or what's the rest?
1080p is what she plays at. Yeah.
And what's the GPU she pairs
Look,
with?
she got a hand-me-down. I don't want to talk about that. But
Yeah. Okay. Well,
she got. I think she has a 3080 Ti. Maybe it's a 3080. I can't remember.
Wait, but that's going to bottleneck it, man. What are you doing?
I just look.
You're
I
depraving
was like,
your
hey,
daughter
what's on the
of
shelf?
all those frames.
And I grabbed the one that was going to make the least noise.
You're like, honey, you're going to leave frames on the table.
When I'm
going to teach you a hard lesson today.
When I got the 5090, my wife was like, "Are you going to kick the old card down?" And I showed her how big the old card was, and then I held it up next to the small form factor that she's running. And she was like, "Oh yeah, no, that's not going to fit there." I was like, "Yeah, no." But the point is, for normal use, the only reason I do so many workloads that are dependent on cores, that like the 14, like I missed the 13900, right, as a result of having a bazillion cores available on that thing, and it was really useful. So going down to 6 cores is a no for me, but I think it's entirely it's an entirely cromulent choice for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Cromulent.
Well, cromulent. Great. Yeah. Now I'm hungry. So I'm looking at U.S. Newegg right now. Elena,
that's America.
Yeah. Let's check out these prices. So the 9600X non 3D version is on sale right now for $190, down from $280. And I would imagine that the X3D part is going to come out above 280. Because it's going to have extra price on top of it for the 3D V-Cache, and so that would put it closer to, you can get a 9700X also on sale right now for $305. So if the 6-core X3D part comes out anywhere around $300, you're looking at either an 8-core non-3D or 6-core with 3D. If you want to go,
I think that's where benchmarks are going to really play a role in this, because I think what we need to see is which games are going to get affected, because they do make use of more cores, right? And I think this was a different conversation even 2 to 3 years ago, but now that we're further along with dev cycles and like more and more developers are aware and taking more advantage of more cores, I definitely would say nowadays a 4-core is not 4-core 8-thread is not really, it's very budget at this point for gaming. Like I think it's fine as a product, like baseline productivity machine, but I think at this point my minimum is 612, right? 6 cores, 12 threads.
Yeah.
or whatever iteration that is based on, Intel's P-core, E-core kind of stuff. But yeah, I think again, it's just becoming more and more nuanced the more complex this gets. And actually, I think that's actually one detriment to PC gaming right now is that, yeah, there's a ton of, it's almost like, because we keep bringing it up, it's the year of
Choice
Linux. So I'll just make a Linux analogy here. It's that you have a lot of choice, but the thing is that having so much choice introduces kind of decision paralysis, or it slows down the decision-making process because you really have to stop and figure out what's actually going to work for you. And, you have to think about who's doing the recommending and what their perspective is when they're making that set of suggestions to you.
Yeah, and I'm also on this Newegg page. I'm reminded that the official spec for DDR5 is 5600 for all the CPUs, like all of the Ryzens, not just the low end.
Then it should be,
it's
okay, so
Expo, like the official recommended Expo is 6000. So
I am unfortunately a little out of date with 9000 series stuff. It's time for me to actually to do a newer upgrade build, I think. So hopefully I'll get to do that this summer. I did want to say, because I was trying to help with giving suggestions to my friend's kid, I noticed that Micro Center does not really have any X3D parts. And I thought that was very interesting.
Wait.
What? And I'm actually wondering, and I couldn't really find, I couldn't find a 5700 X3D anywhere. And I wonder if that's a signal that, and I think we were going to get into this at some point, because I think AM4 actually might be dead. It is such a what's the quote from J. Alfred Prufrock, that poem?
That wasn't me.
The world ends with a whimper, not a bang.
Yeah.
And that's so sad for AM4. I feel like it was the GOAT, man. It deserves a better send off, I feel like.
Wait, so you're saying no X3D parts of AM4?
But not just that, but I also I think some of maybe the 7000 series, I haven't really seen that. I didn't see as many of that. Things have changed so much in the last month or two since I was looking at things even briefly. And for audio listeners, the silence in the background is both Will and Adam looking up things on their laptops right now as we're talking.
Well, so I am seeing a 7800 X3D in stock at Micro Center, of course, local only. But I'm not seeing any AM4 based X3D.
No AM4, and it's sad because I was originally going to suggest this to this kid, because I guess they're a teenager, they're not kid, but I was going to suggest it to this high schooler, because it's it's their first gaming PC, so it's I don't know if they're going to like PC gaming, right? So it's okay, maybe you should start. Maybe you should start smaller, low key, and then if you get a part-time job while you're in school and you can save up, then you can do a platform change. But now it's I think I'm just going to suggest AM5, because that way they can just kind of set and forget. And so I'm going to be a little bit in a Micro Center stand phase, because they just opened here, and I'm going to have to work really hard for Black Friday not to get too caught up in Micro Center only or in-store bundles only. But right now they have a 9600X bundle that's only $20 more than their 7600X bundle. And I was oh, that's actually really nice,
good.
because
does that come with RAM too, or is that just the motherboard and CPU?
Yes, but it's not a great config, because it's only one stick of 1x16. Yeah, so you have to buy your own second. Yeah, Will's face is great. Yeah, you have to buy your own second stick so you don't accidentally nerf your performance by going single channel instead of dual channel. So I had explained that to them too when I was giving them the PC part picker build list I made for them.
Here's the thing, because I'm reminded that the 7600 X3D was Micro Center only. So I bet what's happening here is that the 9600 X3D is probably Micro Center only, and you can still get a 7600 X3D at Micro Center. They have a couple bundles. Check this out. So you can get the 7600 X3D with a B650 Tough Gaming Wi-Fi AM5 board, 2 sticks of G-Skill Flare X DDR 6000. Yeah, two sticks
crazy.
So it's 32 gigs total, 216. That's $400. So 100 over just the CPU alone. You get 2 sticks of RAM, 32 gigs, and a B650E.
7600 X3D is not the Micro Center exclusive. That was the 5600 X3D. So Amazon is the last person. I think Amazon and Newegg still have the 5700 X3D, but I don't know. I think Newegg is third party. So I think Amazon's the only one left that is first party selling it.
I'm seeing articles saying that the 7600X3D was Micro Center exclusive.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said 5700X3D was Microsoft
No,
exclusive.
no,
My
no.
bad.
The
I misheard you, sorry.
yeah. So, and that's the bumble for $400. There's actually a second bundle. So this one upgrades from a Tough gaming board to a Strix gaming board. So a B650A. I don't know, is that an upgrade or because that's a
Side, that's lateral.
So, but still same thing. 32 gigs of 6,000, and it's 420. So that's not a bad deal. If I had to guess, I bet the 9600 X3D becomes a Micro Center
Yes.
exclusive.
Really?
Yeah. So
Nah.
well, I mean, but
I don't
lucky
think
for
so.
us.
I mean, look, we're rich.
Yeah. So people in the chat are saying the 5600 X3D was also Micro Center exclusive.
5600X3D is the one that was Micro Center exclusive, but I don't.
The
I would be
7600
surprised if they made-
X3D was, yeah. So
I would be surprised if they made this Micro Center exclusive because it's just, I think the landscape is different now than when those two came out, like the previous two.
Yeah.
So, because before 5600X3D was just kind of like I think they were just kind of use up, ones that didn't quite didn't perform as, sufficiently to be 5800X3Ds. And then when the 7600X3D came out, you still had a ton of 5800X3Ds that you could buy. So that was that competition. Now it feels like you don't really have anything in that space. And then with AM4 probably almost dead at this point, which we'll probably discuss in just a moment, then you don't really have anything comparable to your 9600 X3D in that area, that space.
My guess is that these chips, budget price Zen 5 X3D chips are going to be so hot that they would be foolish to make the Micro Center exclusive. Now you got me doing it, Elena.
Sorry.
Just because like look at the comments that they made about the sales of the 9800 X3D. And the increase we're going to see, like they're going to keep filling those out, is my thought.
I think so. And I'm not surprised, but I find it interesting that so Micro Center bundles are obviously not a true bellwether for the entire industry, but I do think they give a bit of a clue into the mindset of the companies because this is my guess is that there's some kind of partnership on it, right? And so the fact that AMD is being a little bit aggressive on pricing, even given the economy and the climate right now, I think is interesting. It makes me wonder if that, even despite all these challenges, given U.S. fiscal policy, that they're trying to hustle and capitalize on the fact that Intel is a bit on its back foot right now. Like Intel's been so quiet. I wanted to be fair to this kid, and I was like, okay, let me look at some potential Intel builds for you. And I was like, ugh, I hate all my options. Like I hate all of my options. Just every single one of them I hate. Because it was like, if I really wanted to get super budget, I had to go all the way back to 12th gen. And I was like, ugh, no, thank you. And then, 14th gen, my options, the pricing wasn't particularly outstanding. The pricing for Arrow Lake also wasn't particularly compelling. And I was just like, man, I think AMD is like really pushing a bit harder on this because they know they've got a bit of an advantage.
Look, the Steam hardware survey right now, the May results are 60% Intel and 39.4% AMD, and this is the best AMD ratio they've ever had, I think, right now.
Yeah,
doesn't surprise me.
Like it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like AMD is seeing an opportunity to claw back. I think Micro Center is doing these bundles to get people in the door because you have to go in the door and pick them up, and they know that
sure.
if you walk
It's
in
always
there
been
and
that way.
pick up they know you walk in
But-
there and pick stuff up. They know that you're going to go in and buy a bunch of other you're going to get some filament.
Intel ones aren't as good.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, like there's a little bit. I've noticed a conversation. I haven't cared enough to watch any of the videos, but I've seen some videos pop up. They were like, "Hey, here's my Intel Arrow Lake build for gaming, and it's like June 2025 edition. P.S. Intel doesn't suck," and it makes me think maybe we need to go back and revisit some of those numbers because I'm curious to see if they've managed to bring things back around. I don't know if it's worth spending time on. But
I don't think
it's
they ever
interesting.
sucked.
Sucked.
I think
It sucked. Waste of sand, Elena.
I just Okay.
Makes
Argument
sense.
done.
Come on, Elena.
Concluded.
Come on, Elena.
No reason to talk
It's
anymore.
common knowledge that these chips literally just don't turn on.
Might as well just flush that sand down the toilet as well as turn it into a CPU.
I don't think you should put sand in the
Just
toilet.
put it back on the
fine.
beach.
It's probably not good.
Put it back on the beach.
Yeah,
just
put it on
put
the beach.
Yeah. No, I have seen some people do retesting of Arrow Lake, especially after CES. They kind of made that big push to say, hey, we made some changes. We worked with Microsoft scheduling, yada yada. I think it's still not. It's not enough to take the lead, but it makes it a conversation.
Closes that gap.
And also, as well as a price drop, I believe they dropped the price on a lot of those parts. So yeah. Anyway, but like Elena alluded to, AM4 is not dead. They released
Not
a new
dead.
AM4 CPU,
What?
the 5500X3D. That's what it is. I was trying to think of the number. The 5500X3D.
Is that a quad core?
No, that would be
That'd be
hilarious. We have one chiplet that half
be
the
so
cores
adorable.
half the
That'd be
cores
so
just
cute.
didn't perform. But you know what? We're still going to make
Chiplet
this
for
a product.
babies.
Yeah, no, this is essentially a 5600X3D, 6 cores, 12 threads, and it is just exclusively designed for Latin America. You had a comment that probably holds.
Oh, this
true
is the
of Wired.
Brazil thing.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, Brazil has enormous tariffs for things that don't have some sort of assembly or processing that happens in the country of Brazil. So a lot of companies, I think Sony famously did this for a longer, Microsoft famously did this for a long time for consoles. They would ship mostly built consoles to Brazil, do like final assembly and packaging in Brazil, and then avoid the tariff, which is why I think Xbox has a large market share in Brazil. I could be mixing that up. I apologize. I didn't look that up. But anyway, so my assumption is that they're doing packaging for this particular SKU in Brazil, which is why they're not paying double tariffs on the CPU for that market.
I mean, but that's crazy. Either way, they are packaging up new CPUs, giving new name numbers to products. So it's crazy.
I should say that I am being very US centric from my viewpoint. In my defense, I unfortunately do not have enough time, or maybe I could say that I'm not setting aside enough time to be as up on worldwide numbers per country. But I feel like for the US, like AM4 is going to rapidly become less of a viable option. But back to the 5500X3D, I didn't actually compare it, and I'm realizing this. Is it downclocked a bit from the 5600X3D? Is that why they actually came out with a different name for it? I would assume so.
Yeah, let me go back. This is a article on Tom's Hardware by Aaron Klotz. There is a handy dandy chart here of the speeds and feeds. So yeah, the base clock boost clock compared to
No
the
rooster talk here.
5500 X3D and the 5600 X3D. We're going from 3 gigahertz to 3.3 on the base clock, and then boost clock is 4 gigs to 4.4 gigahertz.
So it's a 10% dip.
So yeah, there's a little bit of a dip,
that's a little
but
bit of a
everything else is the same. TDP, core count, the cache sizes. So yeah, it's just a.
It looks like basically the same clock speeds as the 5700 X3D, oddly, which makes sense, I guess, because you have some cores turned off.
Yeah. So I mean, but either way, it's crazy. Legendary. It refuses to die, but like you alluded to a second ago, I mean, AMD has always said, hey, AM4 is going to be viable as long as DDR4 RAM still is cheap. And you think we're starting to see that change?
Well, it's not that we're just starting to see that change. It's that Mark Hochman, let me bring up the article.
Don't blame Mark for this. He just wrote the
I
article.
didn't say anything about him. I didn't finish my sentence yet. So my colleague Mark, our colleague Mark, I should say, wrote about the that DDR4 is going to basically be end of life at some point soon. I'm trying to find that article.
Like for consumer stuff, right?
Yes, which is really the only thing we care about, to be honest, right? At least for us on this show. I mean, I know there are people listening who for their jobs deal with enterprise stuff, but that's not as pertinent for us.
I got it.
I think I actually mentioned. Yeah, here it is. I actually mentioned this in the Full Nerd newsletter last week. if I remember right.
Oh, you mean the one you can subscribe to on PCWorld.com/newsletters with an S/sign up?
That's
Yeah.
the one. I love that newsletter. It's great. It's my.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. It's my second favorite weekly newsletter, but
Yeah.
that's only because I make one too.
Yeah, after next.content.town.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah. So basically what's going to happen is that because they're scaling back production, the prices are going to jump, which effectively is the death of it as a viable option for consumers. It says reports say that Samsung and SK Hynix has sent end-of-life notices to their customers about the end of DDR4 memory for PCs. Now Micron, because that was the first thing that I alluded to in an earlier newsletter, and then now Micron has supposedly done the same. So if that's the case, then we're going to start seeing that become less viable. Like right now, the prices are still okay. So I would say that if you are still in a DDR4 system, or you're trying to service that for friends or family who just don't want to upgrade, and you think that they could use more memory, like they just have a bunch of browser tabs open, like I do, and you want to take them from 16 to 32, or even just, really future-proof them, so to speak, and bring them up to 64, I think probably now is better time to do it than later.
I mean, the honestly, if you're on a DDR4 system and you don't want to forced upgrade, like when I upgraded my daughter's PC to the 5600, it was because she was on a DDR3 machine before and the RAM died, and it was as cheap to just buy a new CPU and use some DDR4 I had around as it was to do a to get replacement DDR3.
And I mean, that's the other thing too, because DDR5 prices have come down quite a bit. So they are very reasonable now. So I think this is kind of just guidance at this point for people who are maybe on Ryzen 3000 and they were kind of holding out, seeing like, eventually maybe I'll just put a Ryzen 5000 chip in there. Now is probably the time to do it.
Any of the Raptor Lake folks that want DDR4 instead of DDR5?
Yeah, same. So it's just kind of a heads up that one, if you're holding out and planning to hang on to your AM4 system, get your memory now, probably, I don't know, at least the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Like Amazon Prime Day is coming, so that means that we may see some sales, on PC parts. Usually not a lot, but sometimes you can find some decent ones in the mix. And then two, if you were going to recommend budget builds for friends and family, that let's say you were thinking of getting them on a newer system that was affordable before Windows 10 went end of life. And now, yes, we do have that extension. So you might want to do the recalculation of like, is it worth trying to get them onto AM4 now and just stave off that headache? Do you just try to leave them on their old system and see what come what may next year? That sort of thing. So this is more of a heads up for all of us who play informal tech support for other people. Because I think a lot of people who are listening to this show probably have already moved on to AM5 or already have a very clear plan of what they want to do with their existing AM4 system. Or as you said, Will, have a 13th or 14th gen Intel part that is still a motherboard that's using DDR4.
Yeah, well, like you, I am so glad that now we have a Micro Center here too, because some of those in-store bundles are just like smoke.
You know what we should do is we should go to Micro Center.
Oh, we should try a field trip.
Yeah, that's the end of the sentence right there. We should just go to Micro Center.
Yes, let's stop the show. Thanks everybody for
Good
watching.
show.
Check back
We're gonna
next
get in the car.
week. We're gonna go to Micro Center. You want to meet us there? Let's do it. Okay, so
Swing by my place on the way
CPUs.
down.
New CPUs. This is probably the end of the line for Ryzen 9000. I mean, we're
No, look.
right.
Nah.
No, you don't think so?
They got at least
got
4 more numbers under. They could do a 9400 X3D.
True. We'll
They're
see.
going to do some that don't have GPUs in there, probably. Who knows?
Well, they already have those, so no. Interesting.
What if they do one with a TPU? I don't even know what a TPU is. They're just going to make up a new PU.
A WPU, a wheel processing unit.
Yeah, more wheel processing.
All right. Well, speaking of processing, I like to process the numbers that happen in my gameplay. Let's talk about the new Steam Overlay, which rocks.
Excuse me.
Rocks.
I love this.
Yeah, I
unequivocal good.
I saw this. I guess over the weekend, ETA Prime. I follow him on YouTube. He put up a thing like, "Oh, hey, the new Steam client update." and we lost Elena. She hates gaming.
She hates Steam.
Yeah.
She's
Also,
an epic gamer.
Yeah.
All
Also,
the way through.
I'm back.
yeah. She hates that I put on this piece of paper here a bet about the exclusive. Is it going to be exclusive? Will and Elena say no? I say it is going to be.
Is this our new way of tracking things?
That's
Just
a new
stick
way of
post-it
tracking.
on
I'm
the
just going to
TV?
put
It's
yeah.
great plan. Great strategy.
Yes.
Why is this new Steam overlay important, Adam?
I mean, so me
Yeah.
personally, I have always been an MSI Afterburner diehard.
Wow.
Not only for overlay stuff, just because like I know how to configure it quickly. It works literally on everything,
It's true.
and like it's just and for undervolting.
You know,
Like,
the problem with
usually
it-
it's the one I use for undervolting.
You know what?
as well.
It uses WinRing 0,
Oh,
Yeah. So it's a
well, now I don't need to use it
it's a
anymore.
security problem.
Yeah. Now I don't need
saying.
to use it anymore because Steam has a new overlay and it rocks. In order to get it, you have to activate the beta version of the app, which you go into the settings, sign into the beta version, and like the non-beta version, you can activate an overlay, but it's literally just a frame counter.
Now, do you
That's
leave
it.
the overlay running all the time?
Well, let's have this discussion in a second.
Okay.
Because I want to hear Elena's take. And so it's got some really cool features. It's not a one-to-one copy of the game scope in the Steam Deck, but it's
very similar.
It's very similar to that. It shows an FPS counter. It shows lows and highs. It shows a graph showing the 1% frame times and the average frame rates. I mean, you can configure it in different ways, but for the full experience, then you also get CPU, not only clock speeds, but percentage utilization. I wish it had temperature on the CPU. Unfortunately, it doesn't. The GPU has temperature, and then it also has the RAM usage for the VRAM and the DRAM. And yeah, it's great. You can change the opacity. I thought the opacity was at 100% by default because like I could barely see anything underneath it. And then when I looked in the settings, it was at 75%. And I was like, oh. And then so I dropped it all the way down to the first notch that you can get, and it was still a little bit more.
Is that the background opacity or the text
background
opacity?
opacity?
Okay.
You can.
Yeah.
I think you can change both, but I was trying to do the background opacity because it was blocking too much of what I saw. But like, listen, like I do most of my gaming on Steam anyway.
Yeah.
And to have this nice of a tool built in, while it's not perfect, it 100% makes it easy for me to be like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to use Afterburner ever again. Or the vendor stuff, like I know there's an overlay for in GeForce or in the NVIDIA app. I know the Radeon has an overlay, but it just, I don't know, it's different. It's I know the Intel based one, PresentMon.
Perfmon.
No. They have a name for it.
Perfmon.
Is it Perfmon?
Perfmon.
Yeah. Anyway.
Presentmon, maybe. I can't remember.
Anyway, they showed GPU busy, which is cool.
Yeah.
Which has not been widely adopted, but I like it. I think it's cool. Have you tried it out yet?
So I tried it out. So there's two things I really like. One is that they separate fake frames and real frames.
Yes, that is a huge thing. Especially,
Sorry.
I've messed around with frame generation a lot, and that absolutely breaks Afterburner because it just does.
Well, so a lot of the newer, like even like I use CapFrame X to do those microstutter videos, and that has a hard, like there's a beta that kind of shows the frame gen time for the AI generated frames, but it's a little like it's iffy and doesn't work great in all games evenly is my experience. Having the DLSS or FSR frames shown separately from the actual generated frames is really nice. I like that a lot.
The thing though, I don't know if it works because I was testing it out. I need to look into it. Yeah, so I was testing it out in Stellar Blade, and I was like, okay, I have a base frame rate of like 70, and then I turned on frame gen, and all of a sudden that base frame rate went down. And I was like, okay, well, I like enough. Like I turned it on like 4 times, and it was like, oh, it's running at 48 frames, and I was like, no, you were just at 70 at your base frame rate, so that doesn't seem to be accurately displaying. So I'm not quite sure.
Well, so I was gonna say the other thing I like is that they're showing minimum frame rate, which I'm a little annoyed because like when Steam comes out and does something, the thing that I think that sometimes I think the folks at Valve forget that they have incredible amount of power over the way people talk about video games in the community and in the world as a result of their like dominant position in the market. And there was an opportunity here for them to come out and say, hey, the way we're going to talk about this is frame times and not frames per second. And like, they're responsible for a lot of game developers thinking about frame times, because when they were doing VR games, they were positioning everything as frame times for not making people hurl in VR, right? Like that was the original kind of first time we started talking about this in a lot of ways. And they chose to present the minimum frame rate. Like, it looks like what they're doing is calculating the minimum frame rate by taking the longest frame time and then doing the dividing by 1,000 and inverting or whatever to get frames per second out of that, which is kind of a bummer, because they could have just shown the frame time and been like, hey, your frame time is 22 milliseconds here. But whatever, it's fine.
That's not perfect.
It's not perfect. I think overall it's really good. I love not having to have Afterburner running. I think Afterburner is kind of like, it's useful but kind of hinky in my experience.
And I've had problems where Afterburner has actually like crashed games. Like,
yeah.
So
well, so having this painted on top of, like, I don't know how they're actually displaying this on top of the game, whether it doesn't look like an overlay. It didn't look like an overlay to me. But anyway, it seems good. I play a lot of games on Epic, which is kind of a bummer because this doesn't apply there, and I have to keep.
There's your problem.
The Fortnite tool's pretty good, but the other Epic games are iffy.
Elena, have you got a chance to mess with this?
Mm-mm.
All right, next.
Nope, I am
next question.
Utterly noob.
Do you here
talk,
let's transition into the next major question. When you play games, do you use frame counters at all?
I feel like my answer is not going to be particularly useful. Will's already laughing.
Well, no, we should make this a poll. Do you use frame counters? Because I think it definitely is a heated debate.
So I've told everybody for a while now. I've only really been playing Overwatch for the last I want to say 2 years.
That's fine.
I haven't been gaming as much. And so I usually have the in-game frame counter up as just a sort of gauge to make sure that my hardware is running decently. Because, I mean, Overwatch actually can play on a potato if you really wanted to. However, I find the frame counter less useful because really what bothers me in that game is lag. So sometimes the ping times just get really nasty, and that's honestly the metric I'm looking more for in that game, and that's really going to be depend on that game. You're not going to be able to really get that information, I feel like, through a third-party counter. What I'm more interested in when it comes to the Steam overlay, and I think is more relevant to when I used to play more games that were just on my desktop, not multiplayer, I should say, is really getting to understand the difference between when you have DLSS on versus when you don't. I think that's actually a really standout feature of this that would make me interested in it, just to kind of get a sense of okay, what is happening here with my quote unquote fake frames versus the quote unquote real frames, right? So that you can get a better sense as if you're on the fence or you have strong opinions. I think that's actually a really nice way for you to really see what's happening under the hood so that you can have a better informed opinion about how that works. Because every time we talk about it on the show, right, we have people who are very polarized on one end of the side or the other of the spectrum, and then you have the people kind of in the middle. And I think that, I mean, as fun as it is to have conversations when you have people occupying such strong camps, I think it is better for the conversation that if you all go out and look at that info and then come back and have a more informed conversation about it.
Try it yourself, you mean? Yeah. Well, and yeah,
not even just try it yourself, but have the data to back up what you're saying, right? So for the people who are raster only, because they can point to it and say hey, when I'm getting this number for display frames versus this number for actual the generated number of frames, I think maybe that's the reason why I'm having problems with it, because I'm sensitive to X, Y, or Z. And now you have data to actually back that up, as opposed to being oh, I just don't like it. It feels bad. You know what I mean? So it's harder to have an informed conversation with other people, or even help people when you're having these. So for me, when I go on Reddit, I find conversations like this that go back and forth helpful, because if people get detailed enough with why they have their opinion, you can figure out who you're most like. Mm-hmm. So then you can figure out what's going to work for you. It is not helpful when you come in and follow these conversations where people are just arguing on generalities. So that's where I'm coming from on it.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you do use a frame counter, but it's the one built into Overwatch, and do you keep it up all the time?
It's just up in the corner.
So
it's really
just-
small. It's just up in the corner the whole time.
Is it
Yeah.
is it just like an average, or like what can it show you ping and stuff like that? Or
I customized mine, so there are a few stats that I think I don't have up because I don't really care
okay.
about them.
Oh,
I
that's
think
cool.
I just have like my running, like what the actual frame rate is at that moment, and I just kind of watch to see how it's spiking or not spiking, and then I think it's latency that it's showing, and I think either nanoseconds, milliseconds, I forget
Milliseconds,
which. I
probably,
think
yeah.
milliseconds, yeah.
okay. Yeah. Will, what are your overlay habits?
So I generally turn off all the overlays. I'm generally I leave the
Weirdo.
Steam overlay on.
Weird.
But I turn off the NVIDIA overlay and like any other weird overlays, like the Microsoft game overlay, all that stuff gets turned off. I usually
Game Bar?
leave. Yeah, I don't have game. No,
Well,
thank you, game
wait,
bar.
you
Nope.
disable it even though you're on a Ryzen?
Yeah, I don't want. No, I leave it. I have to leave it running. I just turn off the overlay part.
Okay.
The game mode stays on, but the overlay goes away. The thing I find is that I like to know what the frame rate is. If a game has built-in tools that show me frame rate and network stats, I'll definitely leave that on, especially if it's a multiplayer thing. So like Fortnite shows you your latency, your ping, your drop packets, your frame rate, and I leave all that stuff on because it's nice to have, like as Elena said, when you feel a hitch, it's nice to know if it's network, GPU, CPU, your PC, network weather, or fate, right? And
I felt a hitch. That's why I lost.
yeah, it was
It
definitely
wasn't me.
That hamster came at me, and that VFX totally tanked my entire frame rate because I
Yeah.
have to compile those shaders. For normal single player stuff, I generally don't turn something on unless I'm having a problem.
Interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
there are people in the chat saying that as well.
The one
Yeah.
I will say on Steam games on the old overlay, I always had the tiny little frame rate in the top right corner. Just kind of, it's like a security blanket.
And it's so tired. I mean, not tired. It's so tiny.
It's itsy bitsy on a 4K monitor.
Just real little itty bitty.
Yeah.
Alex, do you use overlays? Any frame counters?
Only like Will if I was trying to like diagnose something.
Diagnose.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I have a problem, and I've tried to fix it, but I have a problem of like I need to have it on constantly.
You can't
I
help
can't.
it.
Well, yeah, I mean, usually
That's
like
a problem.
You got that you got that validation.
because then I'm like instead of playing the game and focusing on the game, most of the time my eyes wander up to the left, and then I'm just like,
That is
well, where's
part
my
of the
frame rate?
game.
I know.
That's part of the game.
It is.
Right?
Always
it
be
is.
testing.
Always be testing.
That's what we
yeah.
always say here.
I mean, but that's what I say to
Thank you,
myself. That's what I say to myself. But really, like, yeah, I have tried to make a point of it, especially a game that I'm like, listen, I know I'm gonna, hit the cap of the refresh rate anyway. Like,
Yeah.
I literally don't need to watch this because there is not going to be a problem. So in those times, I'm like, okay, I'll turn it off. A lot of times, if I feel like my settings are in a stable spot and I like don't need to constantly watch it anymore, then I can turn it off. I can do it there as well. But for the most part, yeah, I have it on. And I think it's harder for me too because the majority of my gaming is on handheld. And because I'm playing with something that is so thermally constrained or, I'm trying to min-max the quality of the frames generated, and so I'm constantly watching to be like, okay, well, what's the best experience for this? How do I tweak it? Ooh, you know what? I should drop this or, do that. So on handheld, like I use it a lot.
I've been playing a ton of Tears of the Kingdom the last couple of weeks on the Switch to a handheld. They don't have a frame rate counter on there. It just runs real nice, and you don't have to think about it at all. It's kind of nice.
Well, luckily on the Switch 2, it plays much better. So
Yeah, it turns out after playing it on the Switch 1 and
yeah.
Slow.
I mean, you could feel it. You could feel it on the Switch
Slow.
1. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, there are situations like that where I literally don't have an option. I'm not Digital Foundry. I don't have glasses. You know what? Ooh, imagine if these glasses could
boy.
have a little overlay in the top, and like no matter what I'm
see the
looking
frame
at,
rate of
I
the
see the frame rate
universe?
of like you, like how
What do you think the frame
what
rate
are
of
you
the universe
dipping?
is?
24 frames. No, I'm sorry, 23,976.
7. I have a friend who's he's like he's a human vision researcher. Like he does like retina nerve interface stuff. And I asked him what the frame rate of the
Nerd.
world was,
Yep.
and he gave me he was like, yeah, it's equivalent to this.
Wait, is that the
Why
frame?
aren't you sharing it with us?
I don't remember what it was.
And it's not 24?
It was high.
It's like some
it was
kind
way
of-
higher than 24.
Like higher than 60?
I mean, he said it was complicated, and then he gave me a number after I pressed him a little bit.
Like 120?
It was more than 120.
144?
It was a big number.
240?
You're not going to get
500?
I don't remember. I can't.
Have
We can have him on.
monitors.
He would come on the show.
Yeah, have monitors hit
We
that
can come
number.
on talking about how not monitors.
That'd be cool.
Probably sure some monitors have, but
I mean, like I think 600 hertz. That like Asus said
you
that
can get
new.
600 hertz.
Yeah,
I think we're still outside the realm.
interesting.
Because
Okay.
like the thing is, we get a lot. Like the thing. Part of his answer was that the acuity and the kind of the signal refresh for different parts of your retina are different. So like toward the edge, you get a lot faster refreshes because like you know how your peripheral
interesting.
vision is really sensitive to fast movement, but isn't very highly acute. You get different like where you're looking has different like
Speeds.
different parts of your retina.
Speeds
have
and
different
feeds,
things.
yeah.
And he also said that all of humanity is graded on a spectrum because everybody's brain eye interface is a little bit different.
Yeah, my brain eye interface is very slow. I did not overclock that at all.
No.
It's laggy, and I don't know if it's my network. I don't know if it's the hardware. Not
Fate.
keeping up.
I think-
don't know.
I think it's
I
the
think I
software,
have.
probably.
I think I have low VRAM amount. I
think it's
probably
all the-
have
it's
only
the-
8 gigs of VRAM.
It's
So
all the floor
yeah.
candy. If I'm going to be honest, you got
No,
some
it's
virus.
not. It's
you picked up some
fine.
weird thing from one of those thumb
It's
drives.
fine.
You're not supposed to put that there.
Yeah. So, what were we talking about? Frame counters. Yes.
This seems
Yes.
nice. This is a good change.
I'm curious to see how different it's going to be when they release it into the full release, not the beta release. But I mean, it's fully featured. Like I haven't had a ton of time to play with it, but like I haven't found any issues.
It's interesting to me that it seems like the handheld is driving Steam features forward now, like in a pretty big way.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so it's a nice that
take
they're
it.
finally doing something. So
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I have a quick question
Please.
because it sounds like we're about to transition.
Yes.
Does it do any capture of this data?
Well, so yeah, Steam has built-in capture tools, but I don't think this interface is.
No,
with-
no.
No,
Capture
they're
of the
not.
data.
No, so you still are going to have to use something that ties into
Oh,
Perf
you
to-
mean like
to do that.
spit out a CVS?
Like in the old days, like you could use
CSV, I'm
fraps,
sorry.
right? To
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I don't. That is a good point.
because
No,
that would
I don't
be
think
super
there is. Yeah.
interesting.
That would be the next
Especially,
step. Yeah.
especially because we were talking about what was a micro stuttering, right? And like how we
Yeah.
were trying to capture some of that data. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be directly related to what you were doing, Will, but kind of in that vein, I was thinking, if something like this, as part of a mainstream app that everybody would know, and you could get some idea of what your 1% lows were and when, like that could help you with troubleshooting your system, right? As opposed to, because I think for when we're trying to help people who aren't as willing to dig into the weeds of different tools, then if you could say like this one thing that's already built into your game launcher, it can start giving you some of this data that, would help you troubleshoot. That would be amazing.
So
Hey, can I see your dumps?
yeah, you want to see my dumps?
Yeah.
They're compact and cubic like a wombat. The real answer to this is that Perfmon does this, and there's no easy tools to interface with that. Like NVIDIA's Frame View app gives you a pretty nice, concise output that you can then dump into a bunch of other tools to generate graphs and analysis and stuff on. But I don't think Steam, I don't think they need to. Like they don't need to build a tool that logs that because there's already a bunch of other tools that will log that. You can do that just from the Intel app.
I mean, that would be nice though. That would be
It would
nice.
be nice to have it integrated. And yes, thank you, chat. They were like, that's what you're saying is data logging.
Logging,
Yes, that's
yeah.
what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I mean, theoretically, they do have video capture. Data logging would be interesting. Another good option to have on top of that, and then you can a one-stop shop, right? I've heard recently from the fine folks at Macworld that this has a name called Sherlocking.
Yeah, that's what they call it in the Mac world because Apple has a history of taking really successful third-party applications and then just instead of buying them and integrating them, they just knock it off and integrate it in the OS. Or sometimes they talk to you about whether they want to buy you, and if like I can't remember which app it was, but somebody
Sherlock.
It wasn't Sherlock.
No.
Somebody told Jobs to pound sand, and Jobs was like, "Well, we're going to destroy you," and then he destroyed them. Sherlock's still around though.
Great. Yeah. So I think it's good that it's built in. I mean, it makes it much easier for people who don't want to download. Like, oh, hey, why don't you download MSI Afterburner and I'll show
Nobody
you how to
wants
configure
that.
it. Nobody wants that.
No.
I mean, usually it's built into a driver. I guess that's the second easiest thing. It's like, oh, hey, do you have NVIDIA? Okay, open up the NVIDIA app. turn on the overlay. So, but
It's just you
yeah.
know we keep talking about how we want to be able to convince console gamers to see the true light, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're not gonna be able to do that unless you make it seem as seamless as what they already have.
Well,
So if we also want to see the rise of Steam OS as a potential alternative, like something like this would be really handy to have baked in.
actually, yeah. Oh, good point. Yeah, have Steam
Just
OS
saying.
pushing this too. Yeah. Speaking of consoles.
Do you need console
Moving
info?
on.
We have more information.
Oh.
I mean, not a ton, but more information about the next Xbox.
The next
Now,
box?
The next box. I'm not gonna pigeonhole Elena like I usually do, and turn to her as the Xbox expert.
You mean Xbox editor Elena Yee?
Yeah, PC World's Xbox editor Elena Yee. But I definitely want to get everyone's take on this. So they had a push. An announcement last week where they said, "Hey, listen, Microsoft and AMD have agreed on a partnership to work on the future hardware, Xbox hardware." What does that mean? It means this is an Xbox. This is an Xbox. That's an Xbox.
You get an Xbox.
Like
You
Oprah.
get an Xbox.
Yeah.
It's like Oprah.
Yeah, so they're still pushing that. It's not like they announced the actual new hardware. They just announced, "Hey, AMD will be powering future generations of Xbox hardware, however that looks." So not a ton of information. Sarah Bond has their own video over on the Xbox showing their side of it, enabling new gameplay across devices like the whatever. And then Lisa Su actually had a video up over on AMD kind of talking about their partnership. So a lot of partnership, handshaking. I mean, we know, hey, AMD is just entrenched in the console space, and it sounds like they're going to continue to be. So, Elena, the first question I have, and maybe we've talked about this. What?
I'm not going to swine on Elena, but I'm also going to ask her.
Well,
a question
because
first.
I either I've asked you before or I've forgotten. Either way, I would like you to tell me how this whole new messaging around Xbox being like, ooh, everything's an Xbox. How is this landing with you specifically? That they seem to be less reliant on. No. That's you just bought an Xbox off the shelf. This is an Xbox. To saying, no, that's an Xbox. This is an Xbox. Anything can be an Xbox.
So, I mean, there's obviously a ton of joke answers I could give you, but I'll just go straight to the serious one, which is I think this is it's a little bit surprising given that in the past they went on record saying that they were committed to hardware, that they weren't planning to abandon it. But also in other ways, this also seems like a very unsurprising evolution of that message because of who's been helming Microsoft and their general push towards services as opposed to concentrating on like a set specific product, right? So Windows 10 was free because they were trying to, change this perception that Microsoft was selling these software products that, now on this side with Xbox, now they're selling this specific kind of console. And I think for them to say that Xbox is everywhere, that gives them this wiggle room to be selling Game Pass, right? That gives them this wiggle room to say that, oh, well, my guess, my assumption is that they are going to have some kind of hardware, but they're going to basically make it less of a focal point and say it's like, yes, if you don't want to run a PC, if you don't want to have a handheld, if you don't want to play on your phone, we still provide this hardware that is, basically a turnkey solution. You just turn it on and it takes care of itself. But if you want options, now you can play on your phone. You can, I don't know if they're actually going to do that, but I can
on the
see
cloud.
this as part of it.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
right.
you
You
can
can play, you can stream to your phone maybe, right? You can play on a handheld, right? You can, play on your PC because one of the big statements they made, I don't know if it was the same video or a different one, where I think Sarah Bond had said, we're really going to be focusing on PC, making that like a premier platform. And it was big. It was a big deal, especially for everyone who lived through the dark years of Windows gaming. So
Games for Windows Live.
I just
I don't know if anyone's over that trauma yet, honestly. So it's gonna be a little bit of an uphill battle, I think, to make that feel comfortable for a lot of people who remember how bumpy Microsoft's approach has been to gaming on PC. They've gotten a lot better, obviously.
Well, kind of, but also kind of not. Like the Microsoft Store, like there's still weird problems with Microsoft Store versions of games that are also on Steam and Epic, where the Microsoft Store version is just like weirdly not performant in the same way that the other versions are. And like it always, like the PC always feels like a oh, by the way, we also have this kind of platform for Microsoft, the people what make the Xbox. And like I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical of this. This, like, as a person who plays games,
skeptical of them calling everything an Xbox, or what?
I'm skeptical of, hey, you know, as I think Polygon said, they're signaling that the next version of the Xbox is going to run Windows and is going to be a PC that you can buy, and like I don't
think they do that.
You don't think so?
So,
sorry, just keep going. Keep going.
Yeah,
let's come back to this in a second.
I just think every time Microsoft has tried to make a specialty version of Windows for one specific market, whether we're talking about media centers or tablets or servers or whatever, it's been kind of a disaster. I mean, servers, I guess, arguably not a disaster, but the rest of it,
Azure, nobody uses it.
Well, that's not Windows first. That's a different thing. I guess I'm just saying, like, they have a really bad track record of making these one-off versions of Windows. They don't support them for very long. They're laying off people like crazy at the Xbox division, like left and right. They're signaling there's more layoffs coming next week. I don't feel like Microsoft is really super committed to the Xbox in this modern era, and like, I would be worried about that if I were a person who was buying games on the Xbox and invested a lot in the Xbox as a platform.
I'm not really that concerned. Not yet.
Fight.
I think there could be signals for it coming down the road. As more news, is revealed, I could definitely change my stance. But at the moment, I'm not worried yet. I think they've invested way too much in that brand, and to just suddenly completely switch over to Windows. I mean, they have given some signals that maybe what we could see is more of a stronger tie to Windows, because what was it, that same announcement, they said that they are now going to be directly partnering with the Windows team. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's going to be a thing where you're going to still basically be taking care of hardware like it's a PC. I don't think that they're going to keep enough people if they made that jump for people in the ecosystem, because there are a lot of people who just want to play on a big screen. They want to play sitting in their living room on a couch with a controller. And that includes things like Call of Duty. I know everyone on this listening to this podcast feels about that, but there are plenty of people who want to do that. I don't think that they're going to necessarily say, oh, well, now you have to take care of all these driver updates and these like graphics cards updates and all this other stuff. They are going to, my take is that they would probably still have some kind of SteamOS version basically of Windows, where it's a lighter version, it's very purpose built, and it is going to automate a lot of these things for people. Will that be the same exact experience we have for Xbox now? Maybe not, but I can't see them fully just going over to the PC side of things and just slapping a label on it and saying like, oh, this is an Xbox. I think there would have to be multiple steps between, or at least a step or two between what we have now and that.
I mean, I think
could they do that? Possibly. They have made like missteps before, but with how much money they've invested in that, I would be surprised that's what we're going to see, because I don't think they've done a good enough job at promoting the Play Everywhere stuff, at making it super clear that you can move things across the ecosystem. Because I mean, we had a discussion last week where some people on the show that we were talking among us while we were talking weren't even sure that was a thing. So again, Microsoft's not great with messaging. Like they've never been great with messaging. So I wouldn't be surprised either if they did just go, here it is, we've changed this. However, I would wait to see personally for more information before I started going in that direction, thinking that would be the case.
I just like on the PC right now, we have a lot of conversations about things like DRM, like anti-piracy tools like de novo on. I know the Doom people are really upset about de novo being on the new Doom game for requiring always on internet for right now, right? And you don't really have that stuff on the console because those platforms are locked down. It's a real benefit. Like you don't have to worry about comprehensive anti-cheat on the consoles because the data streams are encrypted and it's much harder to hack into, and like you're much less likely to see cheating. I think if they are like, I feel like this Rogue Ally X that we talked about last week, the Xbox version of the Rogue Ally, is them testing the waters on, can we establish a hardware platform and then just let Lenovo sell an Xbox, and we're back to PC Engine days, right, where everybody sells their own CDI or whatever nonsense for 16-bit consoles, and I don't know if that's going to it's going to be incredibly complicated for them to explain and sell, and as you pointed out, they're pretty bad at this in a lot of important ways, and I don't think, you know. The thing that Microsoft, I think, cares about at this point is the hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue they get a year on Game Pass subs. And if they can continue to juice hundreds of millions of dollars a year on Game Pass subs and not sink billions of dollars into new consoles every 5 to 10 years, I think they're going to be really enthusiastic about that, because that makes the line that the stockholders care about go up, and the one that they don't like go down. And like that seems to be the thing that drives Microsoft right now more than anything else, as you know, as Gordon said, because they're publicly traded companies, and that's all that the executives in charge at the end of the day really care about.
Fight. Sorry.
Fight.
So I had an epiphany actually last week.
Oh.
And I did a video with Mikey. We haven't edited it. Hopefully going to get it up this week, because, you know, after they had the Xbox Ally, the ROG Xbox Ally announcement, I was just sitting there, I was just like, like all the hardcore handheld nerds, they wanted a bespoke version of Windows that was pared back for handhelds, right? Take off OneDrive, take off all this stuff, have it streamlined and simple. And I've always been of the stance of like, no, they're never going to do that. You're talking about a Windows team that has a finite resources that make Windows for literally, millions and billions of devices. They're going to say, you know what? Let's take some engineering efforts off of that just to make a bespoke version of Windows for literally 3 million handheld devices out there, something like that. I didn't see that to be the case. And then after the announcement, people were like, see, I told you so. And I was like, okay, you're right. They are signaling that they're making an experience that'll work really well on handhelds, where it loads into an interface that frees up memory by not loading in the desktop, not loading in the
it's just
the
shelling
bottom
straight
bar.
into the Xbox app, right?
Yeah. And then if you want to go into Windows proper, you can do that. And that's exactly what SteamOS does too. Yeah. You go into gaming mode. Oh, you want to go into desktop mode? It literally is just Linux. So this seems to be the thing that they've settled on, and whether they execute on it or not, I don't know. But I was like, okay, well, I understand why they're doing this, because they probably feel encroached on by SteamOS. Everybody's dunking on, the best part, the worst part of this new handheld coming out is this running Windows. You hear that time and time again, right? So they needed to address it. But then I was like, wait. They're killing. I think they're killing two birds with one stone here, because if they can dump the engineering resources into making this version of the Xbox app that can be used completely controlled by, and they made sure to point this out, everything about the experience from inputting the pin to navigating the software can be controlled with the controller. And I was like, this could be the same exact thing on their home console. That's probably why they're doing so much effort into it. This could be, you could load this up on a PC, you could load it up on a handheld, you could load it up on the console, and rather than have a bespoke version of an Xbox OS, which is, built on Windows anyway, this is what that new console is going to be.
But it's kind of like
Go ahead.
You're
Elena.
saying basically like they would basically be able to launch an appropriate skin for the form factor, kind of like how you could do big picture mode in Steam.
I mean, they're signaling. I didn't get my hands on it. I haven't seen it, but they're signaling it's more than a skin. Like it's more like how SteamOS works on the Steam Deck. Like you're literally going into a completely different version of the OS that is just pared down for the thing that you need. And if you want to go launch into full fat Windows, you can still do that too. But it automatically launches into this, user interface that can be completely controlled with a controller. It can connect to multiple storefronts. It does all this stuff. It's slimmer. It's lightweight. It doesn't load all the background processes. That's exactly what you would want on an Xbox or a console sitting under your TV as well.
Let's not, and I think Will can talk to this more in depth because he's been on the game dev side. But so here's my big concern of all this. I think a lot of times one of the reasons why I am not as immediately assuming that they're going to jump to a full, if pared down PC experience is that because you can't get at the hardware as directly as you can for a console, that's why we have these like bad PC ports, right? And I think one of the selling points for console is that you can get like pretty decent performance out of this older hardware because they know that it's going to age over, how long the lifespan is for these consoles. And I just looked at the numbers again. So for PlayStation 5, it's approximately 75 million, a little over 75 million units sold. Xbox Series X and S, we've got 28.3 million sold. So even though that's like less than half of what PlayStation 5 is sold, I mean, almost 30 million Xbox console gamers, it's not nothing, let's put it that way. It's not nearly on the same scale as PC gaming, sure. But I mean, that's a lot of people to lose because you're not going to have, I don't think you'd get more than just a fraction of that who'd be willing to make a jump to a PC if they had to do it on their own, even if you sold them on this idea that, you can just boot right into this special mode. They are very used to just this like thing that sits very small and very compact on their living room console or like their furniture, and they just plug it in, they turn it on, it takes care of itself.
Well, I mean, but that's what they're selling for the handheld.
Well, except it's
Like
still a PC at the end of the day.
I know, but
But
like
it's still a PC at the end of the day. So the game. So what I mean is that between these two things, so it's still a PC at the end. It's still a PC at the end of the day. So that means that all the problems that come with PC ports and it not running well and you having like stutter and lag and just like the Star Wars game that it's the Indiana Jones game that you keep mentioning,
Star
Will,
Wars
right?
is the
Like
one
that
that's the problem.
Star Wars. Sorry, okay, where it's like they're gonna have these experiences, and that is not what you want in terms of selling it to a bunch of people who don't want the headaches that come with PC gaming.
Well, so there's a couple of things here. One is that the problem with the Star Wars game ran badly on consoles. Too. It wasn't just the PC.
This isn't it's just a port thing.
The big problem is that you're in a neither fish nor fowl situation because like if you're building to a spec, if you're building to a hardware spec and then running an open OS on it, then you get some of the benefit of, hey, here's the targeted spec that people can go toward. And the nice thing about consoles is you know exactly what the hardware is, you know exactly what the driver situation is. And like if Elena and I both have Xbox Series X's and I'm a game developer and the OS forces updates on the console in order for you to play it, then I, as a game developer, know that Elena's machine and my machine are virtually identical, and we're gonna have the exact same experience on them, barring some hardware failure, right, or some software bug that causes it. But for the most part, the performance is the same. Also, you have the benefit of being a closed system, so you don't have to worry as much about things like anti-cheat and copy protection and things like that, because those are just built into the OS being locked down. So if you're talking about making the next Xbox an open version of or more open version of Windows, which like I mean
a more open version of the Xbox OS.
Sorry, more open version of the Xbox OS akin to Windows, then you're in a situation where you like either lock down the hardware so that it can't change over time, and we're using the same version of the APU and they're selling that for 10 years, just like they do with the existing consoles, which is possible, but then doesn't give us any of the benefits of the PC, or but you lock it down and you can't add things to the OS and you can't run your cheats and you can't do your copy piracy and all that stuff. Then that's probably okay and roughly equivalent to where we are. It's just a little more Windowsy, right? If they do it the other way and they make it an open platform where you say, okay, you have to have this min spec, then you're giving game developers the same infinite cornucopia of hardware to develop against, which is a nightmare for them. And we're going to end up in the same situation where we are with the PC, where there's problems with microstutter and there's performance problems and like your weird combination of hardware. You get the wrong RAM for your thing or the wrong SSD, and all of a sudden your games load slower, and the console cert process is going to be a nightmare for people. So like there's no gap to shoot between console and PC, right? Like honestly, the Steam Deck does that as best as I think you possibly can, and it's still a niche product, right? They've sold a couple of million of them, but it's not 75. They've not sold 75 million handheld gaming. No,
I think it's like 3 million or something. Yeah.
So it's like I don't understand the benefit of making a console that's more PC or a PC that's more console-y, because you don't actually say, it's not like you're actually making things easier for the developers or making it easier for the players or like you're just making everything kind of crappier.
But
I mean, that is maybe the Microsoft way. Maybe gradual degradation of experience is what Microsoft does best.
I just put it on the stamp on the box.
For me. Yeah.
Well, but no, I mean, but you said it earlier. What if that's Microsoft's goal all along, to say, hey, you know what? We want to be less off. We want to be less hands off making the hardware. They decided to not make their own version of a Windows handheld for now. They are launching and saying this is an Xbox handheld. They could do the same exact kind of messaging for a console version as well, to say, hey, you know what? We're going to be all about services. We're going to make sure we have a really good OS that can run across multiple hardware. And we're going to have the Game Pass, and we have, game developers and all that kind of stuff. So then they just completely lean into services rather than having to worry about producing hardware, which to be frank,
expensive.
I mean, it's expensive, but it's also been up and down. I mean, they haven't always made the best hardware. But yeah, so who knows? Maybe that could be. But I would say the other thing is that I don't think it would just be a PC with a discrete GPU and stuff like that. I think it would be an APU. And I think that's also why AMD has leaned really heavily into the Z series.
Yeah,
they didn't need to. Most of these handhelds don't use the Z series. They just use off the shelf laptop APUs, which are pretty much the same thing, but then they repackage the Z series in different ways. So in my guess, because right now they have 5 versions of Z2, right? They've got
it's a nice, simple, easy to understand product line.
But
we made a video.
But I'm trying to extrapolate this off of the handheld. So imagine if they came out and said the same thing. Hey, you know what? Just like the Series S and X, we have a Series 2S and 2X. I don't know.
Well, the Series S is kind of a failure, though, because it's not like it expanded the market for them, and all it did is make development an absolute hell on that platform.
Well, but okay,
because
so
it's whatever,
whether it's 1 or 2, imagine if they could say, hey, and guess what? The Series 2X.
A perfect naming scheme.
I know, right?
Is it the Series S2 or the Series 2S? That's
yeah,
the question.
Whatever.
It's really the Series 3.
Yeah. And so that, guess what? That has the same exact APU as the Xbox Ally X. So a Ryzen Z2 Extreme. And the Series 2S has the exact same chip as the normal Xbox Ally, which I think is the Z2A. So then they can say, Microsoft can say, hey, you know what? This is an Xbox. You get 2 APU configurations. This is an Xbox. You get 2 APU configurations, and they're both the same.
Will is shaking his head.
And then developers can just.
I just fell asleep there while you were saying that. I have no. I just. I
blanked out.
I had no idea what you were talking about.
It would be a spec that they would target, and rather than having some bespoke, custom solution for the console, it's literally the same one that's in the Xbox handheld. So now you can target both platforms because it's literally the same APU.
So you're saying they're making the Xbox a Switch?
Yeah, I don't
sure,
think, I don't
okay,
know
whatever.
I
but
don't know if I'm following you, Adam, because you're basically not saying they're doing that. Like in your proposition here, it's not that they're not building a console; they're just taking hardware and putting it in different form factors.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, that's what I am saying. But I never said they wouldn't make a console. Yeah.
Right, but I also... Well, yeah, okay, go ahead, Will.
No. I mean, it's just...
I mean,
Like-
to be clear,
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be the Z2 Extreme.
Yeah, no.
I think it's probably going to be closer to Strix Halo.
It seems like it's the UDNA
But
stuff.
no, it's definitely not UDNA
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
So the benefit of them building custom APUs is that they can tune, like instead of building a general purpose PC hardware with a lot of CPU cores and a relatively meager GPU, they put more TDP toward the GPU, and they have a shared memory bus, so they only have to have one big pool of memory that's slightly faster than normal PC system memory, but it's smaller and than a PC memory.
Well, and now the NPU is going to be even more important than the CPU.
Oh yeah, people are just lining up to use that NPU. I know. So it's like I just don't see it. I don't see like.
So you think AMD would make a bespoke version for the console that didn't line up with the Xbox handheld? So then they have
I think that
three
the Xbox,
separate SKUs.
I think that the Xbox handheld is a moribund product, and they're looking at it as a way, like they were like, hey, we got to deal with these handheld nuts. What can we do? What's the cheapest way we can get out of this? Let's call Asus and see what they got.
Is true
Will they
as
put
well,
it? Will they? Can they get somebody to Dremel out an Xbox buttonhole on the front of the Ally X's? Boom, done.
Boom, put her
Ship
sticker
it
on it.
Yeah,
I mean, it would simplify things though.
yeah. I mean,
Right.
look, having one unified platform across the whole thing is great until about 4 years into the console cycle, when the PlayStation still has more juice in their APU configuration because they spent more money up front, and the Xbox is lagging, and all of a sudden all of your cross-platform games are running like crap on the Xbox and run great on the PS5.
Except for, what if the PS5 had the same APU?
Well, I mean that's the wild card.
So, because guess what? It's getting closer and closer as the years come on.
I mean, look, it makes sense.
I mean, this generation has had the closest to the same hardware as any previous gen. Like it is going in that direction.
It's been
right?
that way
Yeah.
for a little bit, but because like somebody in chat, Robert Lawrence in chat, YouTube chat right now said, make the Series S handheld and proper console for the Series X, right? And I was thinking to myself, that's actually kind of an interesting idea, that you make your lower end version of the Xbox basically like a Switch, where it's a handheld and then you can also dock it, but you're getting that functionality in exchange for, lesser specs basically. And if you want high performance gaming on console, then you would get the full, desktop quote unquote version.
Or if you didn't want a
room
screen,
version.
I know people
Right.
who like never bring
Sure.
their Switch out,
Yeah.
like that would buy
sure.
a Nintendo
Right.
console that had no screen.
But then I realized too, the issue with that is one of the reasons why the Switch, like the Nintendo DS and the Nintendo Switch, are almost the top selling consoles of all time. The only thing that's superseded them, at least on this Wikipedia article, so take it with a grain of salt, is the PlayStation 2.
yeah,
And back
Go.
then there was just less, there was just, there's a different time back then.
yeah.
But I think what people don't also discount is just how fundamentally popular Nintendo first party game franchises are. And if that's the only way you can play those games, people will buy the hardware. And I think that's honestly, to me, this makes it an interesting conversation, because Xbox now is in some ways kind of having an identity crisis. And I think it's doing its best to try to navigate that. But before, Xbox was where you played Halo, right? And that's how you got a bunch of people to buy consoles, because it was the only place you could play certain franchises. And the same thing for Sony. And now that Xbox is ostensibly the umbrella for all of these studios, like they spend so much money on game studios, but they're not going to limit themselves to make money. Those are multi-platform titles, and there's no reason to close it off just to sell the hardware. So now they're kind of facing this crisis of like, how do we promote this as a brand while also making sure we're making as much money as possible off these billion-dollar investments, basically.
Why did you spend $70 billion buying Activision to be the value buy for gamers? Right, like that's where they're at. You can pay $15 a month, and you can be the value buy for people who just want to play, who don't care what they play. They just want to play a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and
It's a
it's kind of
disaster.
crazy.
Yeah,
Because and that's what I mean. Like, I think they're kind of, they've got like multiple layers of decisions that aren't necessarily lining up well, because you can subscribe to Game Pass for a month, play the new release that you want to play that's a first party title for them, and then stop your subscription. You could, same approach as you do with like watching a series on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. You subscribe for the month or however long it's going to take you to binge watch, and then you pause or you quit afterwards so that you save money. You're not paying for the whole year. So then are they really making enough money off of that versus actually selling a $70 or $80, license for someone to hold on to the game?
My guess is that there's pretty significant data that says people don't actually turn on and off those subs.
Probably.
I mean, that's any
Probably.
service, right?
Right.
Like,
I mean, that's the basis of our economy right now.
yeah.
That's true.
It's Netflix banks on that.
Thanks, Netflix.
But again, still, like at that point, though, that's why we've been discussing this for like, more than 30 minutes of the whole, like, what is its identity around hardware, right? And I think we just don't have enough information to really accurately predict where it could go, because Adam, like, I'm coming from a long time Xbox history of seeing them, go from their heyday to now where they are, which is, really transitioning away from being one of the premier hardware console to being more about software and, the actual games. Adam's coming at it from this perspective of like, well, we're seeing this movement in the handheld space. Will has the perspective of someone who's been in game development. But I don't think between the three of us, I still feel like we don't have enough information to really accurately gauge any of this. Because, for example, I'm thinking of an Xbox brand from over a decade ago. Times have changed, right? And they have different leadership. And even some of the leadership that's been around for a long time, you can tell that their positions have changed quite a bit. For Adam, like, making the supposition based on handhelds. Well, handhelds are only like what? Steam Deck's only sold like 4 million.
I don't even know
right?
if it's that.
And that's a small fraction of what the Xbox like series consoles have sold.
Any Xbox console.
Yeah.
Right, and because it's such a in some ways it's kind of a
Wii
niche
U numbers.
interest. It's kind of like a
No,
niche
actually.
interest.
They were
Wii
like
U-
14.
Yeah, 'cause it's
14
like-
Wii U is even
million.
higher.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and to me, that's the better indicator of interest around that kind of experience where it's like you have more freedom on a sort of specific kind of hardware. And to me, that kind of says that maybe there's not the interest there, but we don't know. Right. And then, for Will's perspective, I think we just don't know how expensive game development is currently, outside of knowing that it's so expensive that there's been a lot of layoffs.
Well, I mean, look, the layoffs and the cost of game development are not related to each other. Anyway, overinvestment. We could talk. That's a whole other topic for the dead time.
Well, but I think they are kind of related though, because if you are putting so much behind certain franchises and you're expecting a certain payoff and you don't get those payoffs, then you have to make cuts, and it's a painful cycle all around.
Well, the thing I take away on the Xbox front, and I think this is the place probably where we all agree, is that whatever they're going to do for the next one, it's going to be the least money they can spend to generate a hardware item. We're gone are the days of Microsoft spending $2 billion on R&D, coming up with custom new chips and all this stuff. They're going to do it as cheap as they can, because the perception amongst indie devs, at least, who I mostly work with, I don't work with a bunch of AAA folks, but the perception amongst indie folks is that the Xbox for sales is a dead console, right? Like you don't move units on the Xbox. You move units someplace else, and then you sign a Game Pass deal, or you sign a presumptive Game Pass deal, and then hope that you sell enough that they actually will sign a second year for real money down the road. But at the launch, like it's not a place where you go to sell games on day one, which is a bummer for Xbox devs. And I guess that's why Microsoft spent billions and billions of dollars buying Bethesda and Activision and all the other places that they've gobbled up over the last 5 years.
They're launching across multiple devices.
Yeah.
I would say I'm also coming at it from the angle of taking them at face value. For the last year, they have done everything to diminish hardware and be like, no, everything's an Xbox
but
now.
that's the part of the cycle we're in. Like we're in the end of the cycle where
Well, but
the hardware
like-
sales are slowing down. And,
Yeah.
like they just raised the prices, so this is their way of getting out in front of people who are like, man, I don't want to pay $800 for an Xbox Series X. And it's like, just play it on your, get Game Pass and play on your laptop, man. It's fine. It's the same games.
Yeah. I mean, which it is. I mean, and luckily Sony is seeing this light as well and saying, oh, we can sell our games on PC as well and make like huge amounts of money. Like
was a
Microsoft,
huge-
to be fair, Microsoft's
huge
already
change.
been there. They're like, oh
Yeah.
crap, we can put all of our Xbox tentpole franchises not only on the PC, but like they're gonna release Gears of War on PlayStation. They're like, you know what? We're gonna sell games everywhere. We could care less about the console. We just want to sell games to as many people as possible, regardless of the console. Yeah.
They have to. After that investment, they have to.
So like I think. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. Yeah, is they got knocked
when you're spending
down.
$250 million developing a COD, you need to get that money back.
So I don't know. I feel like everything is just pointing in that direction of like, yeah, they're gonna care less and less about the actual physical console box.
I think
they'll have one. But I think
it's true. I'm not saying that in general terms I'm not saying in general terms that's not true. I just think that some of the particulars that were throwing out there as potential possibilities, I just don't see some of those things as obvious potential outcomes just yet. I don't know if the signals are there. But in general, I think it's all very murky because we are basically seeing Microsoft having transitioned from a company that had so much extra money that they could basically make the Xbox a loss, the department was not making money kind of thing, right? Because they could fund it through other things. And now they've invested so much money into this brand that they can't afford to promote certain things that they want to see in gaming just because they have the spare cash to burn. They don't, I think. Yeah. So now it's like, I don't know if it was Will or someone in chat who said it's like now they're playing a much more conservative game basically around like what they're doing with financials and how much of an investment they're going to make in hardware and other things.
Yeah.
Related.
More to come. Maybe we'll talk more about this kind of stuff next week, but we need to get to Q&A. If you have a question right now, get it in the chat at the Full Nerd Podcast. If you're watching or listening to this later, there's a link in the description for both the audio and the video version to go over to our Discord. We have some fine folks over there. Sign up for it. There is a channel in there called Full Nerd Questions, and that you can put at any time of day or night, and then hopefully we will go through them and read them on the show. I think I have a question that we didn't answer from last week. Oh no, I don't. So
we have
I'm
many
gonna
questions we haven't answered.
Yeah, no, like one from the YouTube chat that I didn't answer last week. Oh wow, okay, there's a. Okay, yeah. So here we go. Daedus has a serious question this time. They had the pre-show with a bunch of random stuff. Now this is a serious one. Elena just mentioned getting into PSUs that she couldn't recommend. Have EVGA PSUs gotten to that point? I love EVGA, and they and Gordon have been two pillars of my PC space world, since the late 90s, early 2000s. But at this point, will EVGA ever be around to support them? I'm reminded of the warranty scene from Tommy Boy. Yeah, what do you think? How do we feel? Do we trust
stick
EVGA?
Your head up a bull's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any idea. I don't cover that.
Lena,
I mean, same. I don't think I can really comment on how I feel about the health of that company. My general advice, so I think in lieu of that, my general advice to anybody when they're purchasing anything is to use a piece of advice my dad told me once, is that if anyone ever offers you a lifetime warranty, you have to first ask yourself, how long do you think that company's life is going to be?
This is why you buy the extended warranty, Elena. When Best Buy is like, hey, man, do you want that extended warranty? Then you're like, yeah, totally. And then you bring it in, you just throw it on the counter, and they give you a new one. Yep. It's only the price.
Best Buy will always be around.
Yeah.
You just have a good credit card. If you're responsible enough with your money that you can pay off your credit card in full every month, you get a credit card that offers you the same thing. However, I think with knowing, because, Daedus is one of our regulars, and knowing, kind of how our regulars shop, I think you have a PSU that's probably going to have like a 10-year warranty on it. So you kind of have to ask yourself, what do I think the landscape is going to look like in 10 years? Do I think I'm just going to replace at that point if it fails? Do I really expect this company to support me in 10 years? That kind of thing.
Realistically, I don't think I've ever RMA'd a power supply, even when they're generally pretty reliable.
Unless there's a
flaw.
Cheap.
Yeah.
You're it's the one that came with your cardboard box, like Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also often if a power supply conks out, the threshold for me on, hey, I need my computer working again, and I can pay $100 and that'll happen, or $150 and that'll happen, or versus waiting 2 weeks for the RMA turn to happen, I'm just going to go buy a new one. And then if I RMA it, I'll have a spare, which then ages in the garage until it goes out to e-waste in about 10 years.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Circle of life.
Yeah, solved. I don't
So, I was just going to say, like for EVGA specifically, it's like, just take a temperature read and, for yourself, decide how you feel, where you think the winds might be blowing. And I feel like there's an emotional component to the question of, like where it's like something that I've trusted for so long, can I still trust it anymore? That's a hard question to ask yourself for anything, because it can be really difficult to admit that maybe you don't anymore. So that one, I think, is something you have to work out for yourself, unfortunately, depending on what the situation is. I think for me, I'm not super brand loyal. I think I have my group of brands that I rely on and trust. And for me, that makes it a lot easier to be like, okay, well, right now I don't feel, and I'm just using this as an example. This is not based on anything I actually know or feel. But let's say like I'm not really feeling Corsair right now in the low end. I'm going to maybe make a recommendation for this other brand instead, if someone's asking me, or vice, whatever company, put whatever company name you want in here as it moves you. I think that's a lot easier as a way to deal with buying computer components, especially if you're doing it often, versus having that one company you always go back to. Because if something changes, something shifts, it can be really difficult to mentally wrap your brain around that. Because I know people, like, I think more relatable example is, storage drives. People have very strong opinions about which brands they trust, because
Really?
when you lose data, it is so
Really?
traumatic.
I don't trust
It is
anyone.
so stressful. It is so stressful. And so you have people who will completely swear by Western Digital, and you also have people who completely will never touch Western Digital. And like you name almost any of the major brands, and there's things like that. And I think that's why for me, it's much more important to have like a group of brands you trust. So that way, if something happens, you can make that jump immediately if you need to, and you have a good backup option.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think it's like a matter of like EVGA was riding high. I mean, I can even say for me, like their GPUs were the first ones I would look at for NVIDIA stuff, because it was just like I love the look, I love how they treat their customers, all that stuff. And now that they're not making GPUs anymore, it's like, okay, well, are they still doing right by the customer? I still have that affinity. Can I, do I feel like I still want to support them because I still care about them? Oh, I could definitely see, how people get into that.
Datus has a follow-up here, and I think this is good to mention as well on air, which is it's more for customers than for myself. But, Datus is asking themselves, like, will they really be around for 10 more years? I recently did an RMA with an EVGA PSU, and it was smooth and very easy. They even upgraded 100 watts. And that's the thing, like, and that's why I kind of took this question more as a general one, because this is just proving that, like, it's not the company itself right now. But I think in fairness, can you really say any company is going to be around in 10 years?
Not right now.
You don't know. And especially right now, given how volatile the market is with the global financial situation and the knock-on effects of all of that. I think it's more of like you buy a product, you hope for the best, but you also prepare that you might not have the scaffold isn't the right word. You don't have the support that you expect you're going to get, which is unfortunate. Because you're being sold that.
And think about the conversation we had with Steve about tariffs and like the overhead of guessing wrong on when you accept your shipment with potential enormous tariffs landing, and think about which companies are going to be able to absorb hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars multiple times, and like it's most companies can't do that. So
yes. And when I was talking to companies initially about the effect of tariffs, like one of the more larger companies had mentioned, they're like, hey, we can stomach some of this stuff because we have other divisions that won't be as affected. But if you're somebody who specializes in a particular certain products, you might not be able to do that. And that's going to be much harder for them. or sorry, those companies won't be able to do that. So it's going to be much harder on them. So it could be that you have companies that are great customer service, great products, but as Will just said, they just happen to specialize in the wrong ones, and there's a miscalculation on, on their projections, and now they like, it creates this, cascading effect that.
At the same time, I don't only want to buy stuff from global multinational conglomerates, right? Oh yeah, it's safe to buy your LG monitor, your Samsung monitor, because those companies are going to be around, right? Or they'll get bought by somebody else if something happens. I don't want to only buy stuff from Corsair. I like Corsair. I've used Corsair power supplies at home for years, but it's nice to buy stuff from Silverstone or other smaller folks that are specializing in the things that actually fit better with what I'm doing because they're specialty products. So
it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Interesting
It's tough.
days indeed. Yeah. A couple more and we'll get out of here. Friend of the show, Ivan R. Nope. Was that the one? No. Friend of the show, Jumps. Said,
sorry, Ivan R.
This one was, I'll get back to that one. Jumps was asking for Mike for last week, but I think I can answer it a little bit here because I did talk to him. Is running Windows 10 after October with micro patches like zeropatch.com a reasonable thing to do? We saw that question after the show was over. We did talk about it, and it sparked off another video that I did with Mikey last week. It'll probably launch hopefully next week. It's on the editing room floor right now. But yeah, I did ask him about this micropatch thing. So what they're doing essentially is saying, hey, we're going to take a patch for Windows 11 and then make a version, take those same things and try to make a version for Windows 10.
How do they do that?
I don't know.
Oh,
Dark magic.
Yeah.
Shenaniganry.
Pixie dust. How does it work? I don't know. So
they have a mighty little patching machine which watches over all the processes running on the computer. When any one of them is found to have a patch available, that patch is immediately applied to the processes in memory without disturbing that process. Wow, this seems like devilry.
Yeah, well, so I mean,
What did Mikey think about it?
Yeah, so Mikey didn't specifically, comment on this company specifically, but he's saying, hey, he would definitely feel iffy about a company trying to take an official Microsoft package, with security patches, no less, and then them trying to go in and do something to it. So this is not saying that this company is going to do malicious stuff, but you would have to rely on a company like that to do those micro patches to say, oh, you know what, I trust you enough to take that official patch and to bring it back to me in a way that you didn't mess with it at all. Is that worth the headache? And he said, I mean, it could be fine. Maybe this company is on the up and up. It could be fine, but once again, you're getting patches that are not from a trusted source, and who knows, it could bring their own compatibility problems as well. So if they mess something up, like they're a small team, how do they fix that? I don't know. So I personally wouldn't do it, but it sounds like there's people out there that are curious about it.
This seems like how sometimes you get a DLL problem and it's like, hey,
or just
this
swap
DLL is
that DLL.
broken, and then you're like, oh, I can just download the DLL from the internet and put it on my computer and it's going to fix the problem.
Yeah,
feels a lot like that.
Kind of, but with security patches.
Yeah, it seems like a great idea.
Like this is
That's bringing me back. I don't think I remember the last time I did that. I think it's been over a decade.
God, I hope you don't. Good. That's a good thing. Don't do that. That's a bad
I know
idea.
it's a good thing. I'm just saying, like, wow, things were so different for us.
Well, I've swapped out like DLSS versions of DLLs.
But that's different.
Yeah.
That's a little different.
I know, but that's
different.
That's the last time I've swapped a DLL. So anyway,
you just get it from a mega download. It's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh boy.
All right. Second to last one from Dr. Mark over on Discord. Will there ever be a future when high demand new release products actually have sufficient stock available when they launch? I will say that probably the closest thing that we've had lately was the Switch 2. Like, there was a lot of stock and a lot of people got units.
Yeah, they did a good job.
I got 3 units.
Yeah, you got more than you like.
I got more than I needed.
Yeah, you.
Dude.
I look. shout out to Nintendo, man. My sister-in-law went and got a Switch yesterday for a friend of hers. She won she got the Warp Pipe pass to go to the Nintendo store downtown where we got Nintendos and
Wait, and so they had it on shelves at the Nintendo
Well, no.
store?
So the way it worked is you told them like
you
checked
you
in, they
measured
gave you a
interest?
bracelet. No, you basically anybody can line up to go into the store anytime, but you can only buy a Switch if you have the pass. And they gave her a little bracelet. They were like, "Hey, what do you want?" She's like, "Here's what I want." And then they did the same thing they did for us. They like gave them. They walked around the store for a little bit, and then 10 minutes later, you walk up to the counter and you have a little bag with the stuff you told them you wanted, and you paid and you left. It was really nice.
And I have seen reports of like restocks at like places like Target and stuff like that. So it seems like they're having stock. So
like from following Wario 64 on Blue Sky, a good resource for game sales and other stuff. They seem to be restocking Target and Blue Sky and all the Target and Best Buy and all the usual places kind of fairly regularly.
I mean, can we point to another launch that seems to be as well stocked as this?
The,
like on the PC
Wii U.
side?
I walked into a Target on the day the Wii U came out and
There you go.
out with a
Boom,
Wii U.
got him. Nintendo, killing it.
I think though, as of late, like specifically products that were released a little bit more recently, we have seen better stock. And I wonder if this is actually because of the tariff situation, because people trying to rush things over to the United States before tariffs change again, as opposed to what it used to be, which was more of a just-in-time style of production. So they were just kind of producing them and then shipping them, producing them and shipping them, because they had that consistency and knowing like what to expect in terms of, different countries' fiscal policy.
Yeah.
So according to Nintendo's press release on June 11th, to whom it may concern, Nintendo Switch 2 sells 3.5 million units worldwide in first 4 days. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's
and that is, I think that is much more than the Steam Deck has sold to date.
I thought the Steam Deck number was 4 million a few months, like end of last year.
It's between, I think when I looked, it was like between 3.7 and 4 as the estimate.
Yeah.
Oh, according to Google AI.
That's the AI overview, though. So like I don't know. I mean, I think a big part of this is that they delayed this launch because they had an extra 6 months to build inventory, right? And we see that in the SKUs that shipped, like some of those Mario Kart SKUs were tied to the hardware. Some of them had codes inside, depending on where you got your hardware and which ones shipped. I'm going to be interested to see if there's a difference in the early SKUs and the late SKUs. Like with any new console release, you always have did you get the good one or did you get the bad one?
Oh yeah, read off the UPC to see like, was this the batch made in September 2024?
Yeah,
or was it
you don't want
January
that one.
2025?
Yeah. Or if it's an Xbox 360, they all just fail. It's inevitable.
There you go, 100%.
100% death rate.
I had a friend who had an original Xbox 360 and it had not red ringed on him at all.
Nathan Edwards, I gave him my launch Xbox 360 when I got a later one, and his lasted the entire time he used it.
Wait, but they just didn't play it. Is that the joke?
No, he played games.
Yeah.
Nathan would have
Did
played
your friend
games.
play games?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
wow.
There you
go. So 98% failure rate.
Yeah. All I know is that I want I'm interested in we need more drama in the PC space. We need something that's in the console space. We need something that's like, we need a good one and a bad one so that people can yell about which one's right. Do you have the LG screen or do you have the Samsung screen? One's definitely better than the other.
That is true.
Anyway.
All right. Very last question, and then we'll get out of here. Back to friend of the show, Ivan R. Is random Linux distro picked from internet floor safer than a candy? Would you rather have a USB stick? Find a USB stick that had Linux installer on it, or eat the floor candy?
I'd rather eat the floor candy.
Got him.
I think I'd rather eat the floor candy than plug any random USB thing in at this point.
It's Linux. It's fine. They don't have viruses.
I used to go to a conference, and a friend of mine used to yell at people who would use freebie thumb drives, rightly so. And so we paid a magician to teach us how to reverse pickpocket and just put thumb drives onto his person throughout the day. So like you'd go up a hug, say hello,
That's a good
drop
idea.
a couple of thumb drives in his shirt pocket,
Oh,
get
I like
his
that.
back, just.
I'd feel like I won the lottery.
So he came out at the end of the night, at the end of the first night, and was like, okay, I just want to show you what you people have done to me. And he just kept pulling. It was like a clown car of thumb drives coming out of his pockets. It was very good.
Oh, that's so funny.
Clown car thumb drives. I'm gonna quote that.
Clown car thumb drives. I like that. Believe me, we are talking. We have some Linux plans.
Welcome to the
Sitting
Linux
back.
Pod.
Yeah.
Starts hour 3 of the Full Nerd.
The Full Nerd is
year
always,
of Linux,
no matter what, when we
2025.
hit hour 3, it turns into Linux talk. Just kidding.
I think I'm going to put it on a laptop this week. I think that might be my one of my activities is to move the laptop over or move a
Congratulations.
laptop over. I don't know which one.
All right.
Might get one of those old Lenovo's
talk
that's
about it.
aging in there. And,
We'll talk
you know,
about it.
Linux it up.
All right, cool. We'll check back next week for your fix of PC talk here on the Full Nerd. If you want to listen to us on the go, then subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Deezer, Spotify, anywhere you can point your RSS reader to. Hopefully
Google
we're there.
Podcasts.
Nope, doesn't exist anymore.
YouTube
YouTube
Music.
music. So, yep. And yeah, not only that, you should go over to PCWorld.com/newsletters/sign up to sign up for the Full Nerd newsletter. What kind of stuff do they get in their inbox? What can you give a little tease that you're working on?
So it is a recap, or at least my take
Elena's
on
recap.
a recap of highlights from our conversations
So she
during
talks
the Full
about
Nerd
how
episodes.
our opinions are the worst.
How
and her
awesome I
opinions
am
are
and
the
how
best.
goofy your glasses are.
No, she doesn't.
Okay.
And I also include
This is an
like fun
Xbox, by the way.
links that I've found and read over the week in there. So I can't guarantee it, maybe, but let's just say every time you sign up for the newsletter, you might just get a link for a Reddit post that showcases like a super cool 1960s like mainframe control panel.
Ooh. Can I make a
love that.
suggestion?
Yeah.
Maybe you put in there the way that Will can get a stacked up Office or a
cheap Office.
365. Yeah,
Give me some free
give
Office
that
tips.
tip. There we go. You put a tip in there.
I
A
don't-
deal tip.
I think deal tips are a little bit outside the realm of
Nope.
the scope of the
I'm cheap.
newsletter.
I mean,
but
you're
you
the
know
one
what?
writing the newsletter.
Yeah.
Who's going to stop you?
I
You should just call this the
My
Full Nerd
boss?
Elena's version.
Yeah.
It's like the end of Clue, where like Tim Curry comes out and he's like, "This is what Elena thought happened," and then there's another one that's like, "This is what Adam thought happened," and then there's the third one that's like, "This is what really
Hilarious.
happened."
That would be
Yeah.
hilarious.
Elena's
But yeah, I
thinking now I'm
include some
doing 3
stuff.
newsletters. Sorry.
All right.
fun things that I think that nerds would enjoy. This last week I actually included a little bit of like PSA where it's like, hey, Anchor power banks have apparently been catching on fire. Just make sure yours isn't one of them.
I had one of those.
I had one. The one I got to run my Vive wireless is the right model, but I can't find it, and
Oh, jeez.
I don't remember where it is, so I can't
Okay.
check the serial number. It's probably fine. I have good insurance.
Cool.
It's fine. It's fine. Just like all you fine folks. Elena Yee, thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and staying in your box. That would actually be really creepy if you did like the ring kind of thing and like came out of the
What we
TV.
should do sometime is set Elena up in the other room and then have her just appear midway through the show.
So we did that once.
Oh, really?
With Brad was here physically. The first time Brad was here physically, we had him streaming from the Steam
other
machine
room,
back there.
yeah.
No, the
Oh,
Steam
right
machine
there.
right back here.
Oh,
So
that's
people
funny.
saw the back of his head, and then the camera feed was the back of the
that's really funny.
of the set. So that was pretty funny.
Amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Will, for hanging out.
Always a pleasure,
and giving
sir.
all your worst takes. Can I
Yeah.
take a photo of you?
No, absolutely not.
I'm gonna try one of these days.
Well, you'll get me eventually.
Yeah, I'll get you eventually. And thank you, Alex Estevez, for controlling the verticals and horizontals.
You got it.
Yeah. Then thank you everybody for watching. We'll get out of here. We'll get out of here, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Back to the beautiful music.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and take it easy out there. Be nice to each other. We'll see you next week.
Don't die from the heat.
Ended.